Hello and welcome everyone to the sixth episode of Evie and the Robot. Today we'll be covering something I would like to say that is very special to both of us. It is the newest installation of the Matt Reeves epic crime saga, The Penguin, which already
Sorry, just that saga name is just no one's calling it that.
Yeah, I think like the biggest concerns before the Penguin was coming out wasn't even really related to the show. It was more related to Matt Reeves calling the Penguin Oscorp and also just that name, the epic crime saga.
Yeah, like it was we'll talk about it more later. It was like the biggest fuss before the show came out was that they were making changes to make it more grounded. Like everything had to be grounded, had to be dark, had to be gritty. And then like the show comes out and it's like everyone's like actually that made it more fitting and more eh, more fitting for the world and much more consistent. And you know what? We kind of made a fuss over nothing.
Yeah, I think the funniest thing is that they're like, "Oh, we need to make things more grounded. We need to make things more gritty." What do we call it? The epic crime saga. It sounds like a
Yeah, it's just I get what Batteries is doing because I think it's like it's all generally focused on Batman being a detective and focused on the crime element of it. But also that name is a mouthful. Couldn't you just call it the Battenverse or the Reevesverse?
Yeah, I think what really gets me is the epic part of it. Like it sounds like
It feels a little self-aggrandizing.
yeah, it also sounds like not to be mean, but it sounds like what an 8-year old would say. You know, like oh, it's the
Yeah, but
epic
to
crime
be
song.
fair, like the way Matt Reeves talks about it, like it does feel like an 8-year-old's Batman fantasy. So
Yeah,
I kind of get it.
yeah, I'll let him have it. And I feel like after both the Batman and the Penguin, I feel like we can give him some leeway in saying
Yeah, like he knows what he's doing. He's allowed to have the odds of game.
yeah, exactly. Like after this show, I'm fairly confident that he can basically do whatever he wants and it'll be fine because the Penguin isn't really that I feel like the Penguin's more of an underutilized villain in the past. Like he was kind of that
Yeah, like because I'm not really much of a comic person. Like I'm mostly aware of what other comic fans have said, but I'm not really a comic person myself. It's like pop culture meta osmosis, you know? It's like
yeah.
I've absorbed the general consensus, but like I don't know what Penguin's thing is among comic fans. But for me, it's like he's always been a side sort of person, like a side bitch. Like he
Yeah.
was like what everyone talks about in Batman Returns isn't really. I mean, like a lot of people talk about Daredevil as the Penguin, but most people just talk about how like they had their awakenings to Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman.
Yeah. I
But and like in and everything else, it's always like he's just also there. It's like the Arkham games. He's like more of a side villain.
Yeah, the Arkham games and a lot of the other like pieces of media in Batman, he's usually that one guy you go to extract information for like a bigger
Yeah.
fish.
Or just or just go for a laugh to beat the shit out of him because it's like okay. This gets into kind of spoiler territory, but like after the finale came out, everyone was just sharing clips of Arkham Batman beating the shit out of Penguin.
I feel like I feel like that's like maybe what Matt Reeves was like honing into because like everyone in the show says that like Oz is kind of like a nothing kind of character. Like he's just like some random
Like
guy.
he's
He's the
it's like
Penguin.
like in the Batman, he's very much a joke. It's like
Yeah.
he's the funniest character, but he's also like a punching bag. It's like it's like it's like pretty much every scene has like a good laugh when like when like Batman's like asking like who Annika was, and at the end he's going like who's murder for mayor? Is it the mayor? Oh shit! Look at this. And like it even says like, "Why don't you ask Mitchell's wife?" What? Doesn't?
Yeah, he's very much like a very
It's like
sleazy.
he's the funny character in the film, and also like just such a sleazy, fun character that like, with even without the show, you can tell Colin Farrell's having a fucking blast playing him.
Yeah, it's very clear, especially in this show, that he liked playing the Penguin. Like he. I don't want to say this like too early, but like it. You know how one of those characters are kind of just made for the role, like they're just kind of sculpted uh for that specific role. I feel like Colin Farrell was made to be the Penguin.
Yeah, it's like it's funny because he said that like it's like one of his favorite roles to do in that, and like how proud of he is of it. But also, it's like the one that like you can detach the most from because like you literally cannot tell it's him for most of it. Like you don't see the actor, you just see the character because of how deep he is in the makeup and the accent and the mannerisms. It's like it's it's like the Penguin is just a real bloke.
Yeah, he feels like a very real person, and I. What's the funniest thing to me is the actress who plays Sophia. I forgot her name, but I'm you might know it. Do you know her name? Otherwise, I'll just call her Sophia's actress. Uh,
Um, Hang on, I'll look because I was just listening to like all the podcast stuff earlier, but name slipped us by. Hang on, something.
she I think it's I know the last name of it is just for some reason her name has kind of slipped me by a little bit.
Shut up, shut up. Uh, in Okay, I'm gonna fucking put Melody.
Close enough.
Uh,
Uh, we'll just call her Sophia's
it's
actress.
close enough.
Yeah,
It's just called Sophie. Yeah.
yeah,
Like she said, like Sophie is her favorite character she ever played. So like you can tell, like everyone really loved the show. Like this wasn't just like I know I hate like doing like a dig at Marvel, but it doesn't feel like a dig. It doesn't feel like a random generic Marvel spin-off show where they're playing characters that'll never show up again in 5 years' time, and like it's just a paycheck to them. This was like there was some juice here. There was some real meat here for them to latch onto.
I feel like they really thought about the whole sideshow thing where it's like, what do we do with these characters, these side characters that might end up in the Batman? Like, what do we do with them? Do we kill them
Yeah,
off, or?
it's
But
like you do kind of have to think about it in that sense because like the premise of the show, the reason this show exists is because when they were like conceptualizing what part two was going to be, they figured, well, because the main premise was like the end of Batman, the whole power struggle caused by Carmine's death. They figured, well, maybe Oz will step in and try and take over. They thought that'll be at the start of part two, and they figured, maybe we can't fit that all in because he won't have that many scenes. I think they've said he only have like
yeah,
six scenes
yeah,
like he did in part one, like in part one. So like they were like, we need somewhere to get him from point A to B, so that we can just tell the story more for part two. So they figured, let's just do a TV show.
yeah.
So
It's
like
just
you do kind of think it's like very tactical. It's like that's something I like about this universe so far. It's a very tactical universe. It's like everything is either like a complete experience and also is just like it makes sense. It's like you build. It's like what the early MCU was like, except it's all building for one film series and not like a whole cinematic universe. It's just like one series of it's one trilogy of films where it's just getting built and built and built.
yeah. And I've always thought that the Penguin would make for like an awesome like standalone film or standalone TV show because he's yeah
No, I was gonna say like thing is like when I heard that this was gonna like involve like the Falcons and the Maronis and like the Power Struggles, I figured, oh, so it's Long Halloween. They're just doing Long
yeah
Halloween.
basically like
So like part one and this show is basically like the live action sort of version of the Long Halloween, because
Yeah.
Matt Reeves kind of said like the flood in the first film is like the death of like the common gangster. It's the birth of the supervillain. That's what Long Halloween was. It was the rise of
Yeah.
like of like costume supervillains. It's what the scene in part one is, where it's like you see that it's what everyone keeps saying, that the scene with Joker was tacked on. It should have been a post credit scene, but it's like it's just like saying it like things are going to get worse because he is here, and
Yeah.
he has been here for a while. Like it establishes that like like the flood was only the beginning, and like it's no longer just crime bosses and drug lords and serial killers. It's gonna be supervillains, and so like you did kind of need that sort of. You needed to like get all that out here, because if you're gonna do Carmine Falcone, you're gonna have to do everyone else. Because like
Yeah.
they mentioned Maroney in the first film, and how like the jobs operation was his, but we only saw him in like a brief flash that conveniently does not look anything like Clancy Brown. But
Yeah.
we saw him on we saw him on a TV, and like we hear about him, and like how him or Carmine was maybe who killed Bruce's parents. Like it's
Yeah.
it's all an air of mystery. So finally seeing it, and then seeing like the fall of the House of Falcone was quite fun.
Yeah, I feel like it really played into the Long Halloween vibes. Like, I, I wasn't entirely sure.
Like,
It's like this is very. Oh, the
it feels I was gonna say it feels very long Halloween, because the first one started on Halloween, and this takes place in like November, I think.
yeah, yeah,
Because like no episode three takes place on this date, like because Victor checks his phone, and it's Tuesday, November 19th. So it's like,
and he also
well,
plays.
because
Yeah, he also plays some TikToks on there as well.
yeah, but like, uh, and but personally, I'm a real stickler for like winter films, not necessarily Christmas films, but like films set later in the year. It's like I just have a real specific feel to them, man. Like I love that this show just had it. Just yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
you were saying.
yeah. Like ever since they announced Sophia Falcone being in the Penguin series, I was like, oh, it's basically the Long Halloween, because Sophia Falcone isn't really utilized that much. Like, she's not in any live action Batman
Yeah,
media from what I can tell.
like thing is, like the Batman is like the most the Falcon. This and the Batman are the most Falcons I've gotten, like in terms of attention, in terms of Batman adaptations. Like the
Yeah.
most we got was like Batman Begins, and also The Dark Knight, where they get Falcone's name wrong because they call him Falcone.
Yeah.
But like, but like that was like a big part of Bruce's arc, and after like he gets strapped to a bat signal and goes crazy in Arkham, then it's like he's just kind of not really all that impressive. And then in the second film, Maroni is played by the master from the 1996 TV movie, and also the guy from the Mr. Brightside music video.
Oh, him.
Basically, yeah, Eric Roberts. Like it's sorry, I like pointing it out that like like an actor who has played the Master in Doctor Who is also in The Dark Knight.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just,
actually pretty cool.
I just find it funny, and now the new Maroni is also has a similar coincidence because he's Mr. Krabs.
Yeah. It's kind of insane, like because Clancy Brown, not Clancy, has played so many roles, but every single time he's in like another piece of media, everyone will always refer to him as that one guy who's in SpongeBob, Mr. Krabs. No one
Yeah, it's like I know that he's in Daredevil and he plays like a Punisher villain, but all I could think of was just hey, it's Mr. Krabs.
yeah, I mean,
Or, or, or even when I watch Highlander and he plays the villain in that, and it's just oh, it's Mr. Krabs.
I think at first you're like, oh my god, it's Mr. Krabs, but when he really gets into that role of Sal Maroni, you're like, oh, it's starting to feel like he's Sal
Yeah,
Maroni.
like it's like it's like this isn't like a sort of like thing where like he'll just take the job. This feels like there was some meat to this role, like especially like in relation to his wife and kid, which we'll get to maybe later when we get to like more of the plot related stuff. But like you can tell this is like they had like this was their shot to really like expand like the crime world of this universe and also like show what Baronia was like since he was in prison at this point and what like that that crime war between him and the Falcons could have looked like. And they really nailed it.
Yeah,
Like
I think one of my main concerns was perhaps since this being a TV show, they and the budget is limited, they wouldn't be able to explore that gang war properly. But in like episode 7, city streets get blown up. Like this is not some
yeah,
small scale shit. It's a proper crime war.
which which I will say does kind of bring me to my one sort of criticism with the show, in that things get a little bit too big to wonder where the fuck is Batman during all this.
Yeah, I think they're sort of going to address that in part 2 where he kind
I
of
know that I know they've addressed like Matt Reeves has said like after the flood and like the whole thing of him like unknowingly inspired Riddler and an entire incel uprising. Bruce is probably thinking maybe being Batman wasn't a good thing. So
Yeah.
with that in my yeah, no, it makes a bit more sense. But like an in-universe acknowledgement would have been nice. It's like
Yeah.
something as simple as like the Penguin going, hey, like looking up at the sky, wondering where the bat signal is, or like or like saying, you gotta get in. We shouldn't be out so late, or the bat will get us." Like something like that. I imagine there was like maybe like they said they didn't want him to overshadow it because like the very common sort of prediction was that Oz was gonna get to the top. He was gonna like be the new kingpin of Gotham, and then like Batman was gonna show up and then just knock his teeth out.
Yeah, which would
Like,
have been a bit unsatisfying.
just yeah, like they did say they were thinking of doing that. They were gonna bring in Robin and like have him show up and but then it just be sort of like, well, now you gotta watch the Batman Part 2. You gotta stay tuned for that. And it's like it makes it a bit more it makes it more sort of sequel setup.
Yeah.
It's like it makes you think you'd rather be watching Batman than you'd be watching Penguin. So it's like I get the reasoning for it, but it's also like really there should be some sort of mention of it, that's like just something, but like it's not the end of the world. It's like a minor pet peeve. Outside of that, the show's literally fucking perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like this show does such an intense job to try not to mention his name where it feels like we're like in one of those
Yeah, it feels a little stubborn. Like it feels like we're not mentioning them. We are not going to mention them.
yeah,
And it's like well, I think there's like maybe like a thing where like they can't use Batman in like a live action TV show or something. I think that was a whole legal shit thing back when like Gotham was on, for instance.
yeah, Gotham
Yeah,
really
that
couldn't.
that like they couldn't use Batman or the Joker. It's why they had to do the whole Jerome, then Jeremiah, then him just being called J. It's like
Yeah.
it's like why they didn't really show Batman until the end of like the finale, and it was in a really shit batsuit.
Yeah, as someone who had been like watching that show for years, and I was actually kind of excited for the finale. God damn, did they ruin it? Like that final episode was just, whew, it was really something. It felt like you know how the Penguin show ends on like a cliffhanger where it feels like there's gonna be something afterwards to it. That's kind of how the Gotham show felt, but like way worse, and also there was no sequel to it.
Yeah, because like that's just like it just ends. And like with that, like it's a lot of shows where like they had like a whole other season and they were told, nope, you gotta end it. It's like here it's like it was always poised as one season. They knew what they wanted to do, how it was gonna end, and they did. So like
Yeah.
yeah.
To be fair, that show was it say what you want about it, but it was always kind of just like a really dumb, goofy show that
Yeah,
you know.
like it very much embraced the stupidness of it. You know, it's like
Yeah.
I've seen one clip where like it's is it Asriel shows up to Wayne Manor threatening to kill Bruce Wayne, and then Penguin shows up
With the
and has
bazooka.
his goon shooting him with a bazooka.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
like,
it's definitely playing into like the golden age era of Batman where people
yeah,
all
which I
campy.
imagine I imagine is what like James Gunn universe is going to be like. That's going to be like very silly and campy and such. Not
Yeah.
well, not so much silly and campy, but like more sort of it be allowed to be a bit silly. Whereas this universe is much more like the tone of Batman Year One instilled into a movie series.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they're going they still have comedy in there. Like it's very
Yeah,
dark comedy
like
though.
yeah, it's like it's not so much laugh out loud, but it's just so like like it's sort of like a good chortle sort of laugh, like I know good wordplay, like the thumb drive joke
Yeah,
in
that's what I
part
was
one.
thinking of. I was actually about to say that. um like stuff like that or like in this show, it's not so much that it's more of just Oz's jokes. Like he just says random like one-liners, not the MCU
It's like
one-liners you're thinking of, just like
like like when he's planning his stuff, when he's like saying like when he's dick riding Sophia and he's being like, you it should be you in there calling the shots and like the speedwalk and he's like, are we running a marathon here?
yeah, that's like one of my favorite ones, and how in the beginning of the show is like, stay in here, hopefully you'll find your sense of humor in here somewhere. Even though he's like just friend to kill Victor like a few minutes earlier. It's stuff like that that really makes me feel like it's
Like
people speaking to each other.
yeah, it's like it's not so much. Thing is, I don't know where I saw, but there's different layers to naturalistic dialogue.
Yeah.
It's where like where it's where they interrupt each other, they're starting over, they're not quite speaking how you expect people in a TV show to speak. Then there's like sort of theatrical dialogue, which is like hate to say it, but Mike Flanagan shows where they've got a monologue ready on a spreadsheet every 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And not that there's a problem with like any of those pieces
Yeah,
of
like
dialogue. It's
there's not a problem with any of it, but it's just a case of preference. It's like
yeah.
it depends on the execution. I love me some naturalistic dialogue where it feels real. It feels like it doesn't feel like you're reading a script. It just feels like you're talking. But also,
Yeah.
it's like if it's really good, well written dialogue, then it's like then it's like yeah, you can look past it.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like the Penguin nails that naturalistic dialogue pretty well. I feel like the writing for this show like overall is really tight. Like probably like some of the
Yeah,
tightest writing I've seen in a while. Um,
yeah, and it's the impressive thing for sure is that it's not just that like because like when it came out, the worst like worries that it was just going to be like not as good as the Batman. It was just going to be, it, like it was going to pale in comparison and all that. Like it was just going to be an all right TV spin-off, but no, it's like
yeah.
it's a legit, well written, well directed, well shot TV show.
It's to the point where you could be like, which is more well written, and I feel like people are going to debate on that, like, which is more well written, the Batman or the Penguin, and I, I kind of find it
And you know
incredible.
what? Yeah, it's like this very easily could have just been like a one and done sort of cash grab spin-off. But it's like no, they had a story they wanted to tell, and they knew what they wanted to do, and like they didn't went through with it. They like Matt Reeves was very involved. It was like a very tactile show, but while still having its own vision. It's like
Exactly.
I think they talked about how like when Alberto dies in the first episode, that's when like it stops trying to be like the Batman and starts
Yeah.
forging its own sort of visual sort of identity and sort of tone in that.
I can definitely say that the moment I got invested in the show was right after the whole dialogue exchange with Alberto, and he just shot him, and he was like laughing for a second, and then slowly realizes what he's
And
done,
then
and he's
he's
like, "Fuck."
and he's- that moment fucking murders me every time. It's just like
Yeah.
he's just laughing like it's like you can see like it's like a momentary high for a second where he's done, and it's like it's honestly it's great acting from Colin Farrell. See like his face just suddenly drop, and then suddenly he just starts cringing while he's done. It's like fuck,
Yeah. It's
the
that's
best title card in the whole show.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a great way to get everyone invested because pilots for TV shows, it's so hard to get someone invested in like an hour long TV show with like all these characters involved. But the Penguin does it in such a way where you don't even notice it's been an hour and suddenly all this shit is happening and you're just so invested in it because that's exactly what happened
Yeah,
to me. Uh, I was like, okay, let's see what how Colin Farrell does because I wasn't entirely sure whether I would completely like the show. I was very interested in it, but I wasn't sure if I'd like it. And 5 minutes after the opening dialogue, I was like, "Yep, I'm in. I'll be watching this weekly." And I feel like the not to like overlook the the main conversation between Oz and Alberto because I feel like that itself is a really good piece of dialogue. Um, but I feel like Oz in this show kind of has that philosophy. Like you can kind of tell at the very beginning of the show there is that philosophy that Littlefinger does from Game of Thrones, which is chaos is in a pit, it's a
yeah.
ladder.
Actually, yeah, that's a really good comparison. I didn't think of that. Yeah, like he Penguin is very much for like the little finger of this universe.
Yeah, he looks over at the chaos and he doesn't like he's not saddened by it. He's not uh like quite depressed. He looks at it and he just sees opportunities, just smiling at everything that's going on because he realizes that now is a better moment than any to rise to the top and finally get that respect he thinks he deserves
Yeah,
and
like there was a deleted scene from the first film. There's one of the two, three deleted scenes that we know about. Where, like it's when Selena's entering the 44 below, and
yeah.
she enters Penguin's office, and like they have a chat. And at one point, he says, "Don't worry, that one day this city's gonna be mine." And it's like from the beginning he was plotting this shit. Like he was plotting his way to the top.
Yeah,
And like
exactly.
e- even in the end of the Batman, like because like I was kind of thinking like maybe his whole impulsive thing was slightly flanderized because it was like
Yeah.
you gotta take like a side character and make him a main character. But like nowhere, like at the end he was fully willing and ready to murder Carmine then and there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's only that he got stopped by the Riddler, but like it's the exact same thing that happens with Alberto that like someone insults his ego and he's just ready to kill someone on the spot for it. Um
And even if it's not like killing him, when they're trying to get Johnny VT to send him a phone call to the triads, and
yeah.
like he's like, oh, the penguin, we keep him as entertainment, and then like he just goes in with like some pliers to his teeth, and just
Yeah.
like is like going, "Am I funny? Am I funny to you?" And it's like you can tell this. It's why I think so much like he's a bit like Walter White. Like he like not only is he like a crazy monstrous bastard, he also has a very fragile ego.
I think it's also one of those things like with Walter White that you start rooting for him for like maybe the first 3 episodes and then after that like it's kind of like Walter White where you start rooting for him for like the first
Yeah,
few seasons and then you're just like
it's like
oh
I mentioned this, but he's kind of like a mix of Saul Goodman and Walter White
yeah
because the whole point of the show is like to see how he becomes the title character, how he becomes the Penguin, like he becomes the guy on top, like how Better Call Saul. You want to see how he becomes Saul, and by the end, it's like, oh, you really didn't want him to become that.
yeah like it's kind of the more the show progresses you're like I really don't want him to become this. It's I
and
also
it, and it's like and it's also like so Walter White and how like you start off kind of rooting for him. Like he's like, oh, he's got his ma, he's doing it, he's trying to get some respect, and
mm,
like and like everyone else kind of sucks, so he's not so bad. And then by the end, it's like, nope, he sucks.
yeah.
I need Batman to pound him into the dirt.
I think it's the Better Call Saul Breaking Bad comparisons are pretty apt as well because like with Saul Goodman, his superpower is basically his mouth. And same with Oz. Both of them are great at talking their way out of situations. Like you can just see the lies coming out of his mouth, and it's so impressive that you're almost like, holy shit, how does he manage to do that? Because he's just able
Yeah,
to.
like in the finale where he manages to like bullshit his way into potentially entering like the mayor's social circle just by like pinning everything on like Salvatore and Sophia, and it's like, did he just make it up on the spot, or did he have this plan from the start?
Yeah,
And it's like you can't tell. Like it's what makes him so captivating. It's like you can never tell what he's saying is true, or if it's just a chance to like worm his way out of a corner.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think you can even see the moment that Sophia realizes it, which is like, I love the moment where they have this heart to heart where he's like, I'm really sorry that I put you in Arkham, and she's like, I don't know how I can trust you, and he's like, let me show you how, and the next scene is just him spouting bullshit. It's, and her just being like, oh, okay, I can't trust him. That's probably like,
Yeah, like yeah, again, like just watching episode 2 and episode 3 when they're starting to like get closer and more together, and then just it's him like sucking up and like trying to be like, it's like I don't regret putting you away, but I'm sorry, I'm fucking sorry. And then it's like him trying to like play both sides, and like he doesn't regret what he did, but also it's like he doesn't want her to kill him.
yeah, exactly. And I love how at the end Vic's like, "What about Sophia?" And he looks out the window. He's like, "Fuck, forget about her." Like it's. I think one of the best parts of the show is just seeing him adapt because his strength is just adapting to any situation. Like, for example, things go wrong in episode 2, where they're trying to plant the jewels in the car, so they suspect, Johnny Vitti for being the one betraying them. But that goes wrong because Victor messes up the plan. So he just does this thing on the fly, just stabbing Johnny Vitti, and then I'm not Johnny Vitti,
No, like
Arvard.
he stabs the guy, the Maroni guy
Yeah,
that they got in the basement.
yeah,
Like he stabs him, and then like and then they like the whole house is on lockdown, like going like who did, and like he gets into a tussle with Johnny Vitti, and he manages to slip the knife into his bodyguard's pocket in
yeah.
order to like get it off him and pin it on someone else. And it's
It's
like,
it's such a neat subversion because you think that he planted the knife on Johnny Vitti, and I feel like if he had done that, it would just make him look more suspicious. So the fact that it was on the bodyguard is so much more like, oh my god, he really just did that. It's moments like those in the show where he just purely adapts. He barely has any time to like think. He just adapts instantly, and you can tell like you can see the cogs moving inside of his brain when he's trying to think of a new plan. Like it's
I was gonna say, you can see the cobs moving in his head.
like it's like in episode 5 where they move to Crown Point, and he's trying to think of a way to get the drug operation moving because he's kind of fucked at the moment. He only has 2 buckets of bliss, and he's just walking around. He's thinking, and then he sees the subway token, and you can just see everything moving inside of his head, and you can see that idea. It's like a light bulb above his head, seeing him react to that idea. And on first watch, you're like, oh yeah, it's just like an idea he randomly had. But then it's like on rewatch, you're like, oh, that's he only got that idea because that's where he killed his brothers. Oh, that's even more fucked up. Like I
Yeah, yeah, it's just every sort of positive thing about him just suddenly becomes so much more twisted and fucked on like a second rewatch.
I think that's what makes the Penguin show so refreshing to me because they don't make it like kind of open ended, like, oh, there's some good qualities about him, but overall he's a bad person. Like, no, every single
Yeah,
gets
oh yeah, like he is a villain, like
yeah.
from the start, from birth to probably when he's gonna die.
the
He is a villain, and they don't pull any punches.
I like the show even mentions that, like, literally says he's the straight up, like, he's the devil incarnate. He will like do anything, say anything to get what he wants, and that just makes the show like so much better for me because you can kind of tell that he's basically a devil. He's got the silver tongue. He's he's not exactly the most pleasant to look at. Uh, like if you told me that like Oswald Cobb was the devil himself, that's what the devil looked like, I would absolutely believe you because the things he does, especially near the end, is just so fucked up where it completely changes the way you look at him because I haven't seen anyone defend the Penguin because there's a couple of them like after these shows come out about these morally gray characters, but for this one I don't think anyone has tried to defend him. In fact, it's been the opposite. Everyone's been against him and wants his like shit to get kicked in. Especially on rewatch when it almost feels like you're watching a completely different show because at the beginning on your first watch you're like, oh, he's a bad guy, but he's not, like, he's still trying to make it in a fucked up world, whereas on rewatch, since you already know who he is, the things he says are just way more fucked up because I was talking to Evie about this earlier, but when he's in the car driving Victor, he's like, "Oh, I used to go around in the summer and get slush puppies with my brothers." And on first watch, you're like, "Oh, that's kind of sweet." On rewatch, you're like, "Oh, ooh." I'm not sure how I feel about that one because at the end of the episode, he gets a slush puppy with Victor. It kind of just on
Yeah,
rewatch, like
it's
you
a
can,
nice bit of foreshadowing.
yeah, it's basically like seals his fate, and I don't really know how to say
Yeah, and
this.
like the worst part is that it's like meant to be like a cute moment in
Yeah,
in the episode because it's them like going like, hey, it's like them having like a real nice moment and like a shot of the city while Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 plays over. It's meant to be like this
yeah,
real like sort of I, I don't know what the word would be like, but just the way I describe it is like little guy.
yeah,
Has very little guy energy. Like, hey, he's just a little guy. He's a little fella.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's how I describe. That's how I describe sort of Oz in like on your first watch in the first couple episodes. He's just this little guy,
Yeah,
and then by the end, he's like, he's a little guy who I want to punch in the face.
I think that's the energy that the show tries to give off because everyone underestimates the Penguin, and even like Sophia is like, everyone underestimates you, but I've always known you've been good for greater things or whatever she says. She it's basically her way of saying, I know you killed my brother and I'm gonna find a way to prove it, which is until the end of the episode where it makes it seem like the Maronis did it. And on first watch, their Oswald and Sophia's dynamic almost seems a little bit flirty, a little bit of the cha cha slide going. But on rewatch, it's kind of like a game, a dance, if you will, where they're both
Mm.
trying to play each other. Because Sophia, like, you kind of wonder like why Sophia, you think Sophia's so pissed at him in first watch because she kind of still suspects him, But on rewatch, you realize she's like so suspicious of him because she ended up on Arkham for underestimating him. Because she like the first chance Oz got, he immediately went to uh the Falcone. I forget his name all the time because there's so many
He
Falcones.
went to he went to Carmine
Yeah,
with
he
it.
went to Carmine, and it just locked her away for a while. So when she starts saying like, I don't know who wants this more, me or you, she's kind of just like trying to see what Oz's game is because he's working against the Falcons, and then it's only like a like she even realizes for a second like when he starts talking about like, oh, I saved Castillo last night in the gunfire, and I saved the shipment, I'm on your side and everything. And for a second you can see that she kind of believes it, and then after like a couple more seconds you can see on her face she realizes that he's not doing this to try and get dirt on her to like rat her out to the Falcons. He's doing this for himself, and you can you can see her smile when she realizes that, and she's basically right about him the whole time. Like she doesn't miss the mark at all. It's only because the Penguin is so good at talking his way out of situations where she thinks maybe what I've thought of him has been wrong all this time. And I think that that's actually incredible because the one time she does finally trust him, she immediately gets betrayed for it and finds out that her brother got murdered. And I think that's just the best bit of irony I've seen in a while. That the second she
Yeah.
starts trusting him, she finds out immediately about his brother, and I think that's so funny. I think that another weakness of the Penguin is that he tends to overlook a couple things because he's like so busy playing both sides, and it's basically like a big ping pong match where he overlooks like the smallest details. Like he talks about how the to the Maronies, like about how the Falcons are basically a mess right now. Like they're in the middle of a gang war, they don't know what to do, and so he's basically like, oh, I'll be in the third car. And then once like he actually starts going to the Falcons to do the shipment and everything, they're like, no, you're in the middle van because there's a gang war happening. He kind of just overlooks that a little bit because he's so busy playing both sides. And it's the same thing that happens with the Maronies in the next episode. He's so busy trying to get uh, this bliss operation going with Sophia that he kind of just overlooks that. Yeah, the Maronies kind of would be spying on him a little bit. It's it's not even like a character flaw. Like I feel like anyone would like overlook that kind of stuff, but it just kind of uh shows that like it's such a big fucking mess that even for Oz it's hard to keep track of. Uh,
Yeah.
I feel like as well the end of the show, like after he kills Victor, and he goes to his mother's apartment, he uses the prostitute the sex worker he's been with
Yeah.
for all this
Yeah.
time as
Eve.
his mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels real nice. No, at first I was like, oh, it's real nice that like there's a character in this universe with a kind of similar name to mine. It's like kind of like has my name. Then like by the end, it's like,
Yeah. It's
uh,
in a way
I don't want to. I don't want to be that.
in a way it's very similar to his mother because both know exactly what happened because Eve knows what Oz did to some of his like some of the sex workers that she was trying to protect. Like Oz would sell them out to Carmine and get them killed. But Oz doesn't know that she knows, and it's a very similar situation that him and his mother were in. That both of them know what's going on, but they both don't want to admit it. It's very and the reason why she doesn't admit because she wants a bigger place for all her girls to work in at the Iceberg Lounge. You know, it's a very what do you call it? It's a big opportunity for her, just like for her mother. For the reason why Oz's mother doesn't really kill Oz. It's for love, but it's also because uh, sh- she had she
He's their ticket to like a sort of better wish life than what they have.
it's very much a deal with the devil kind of situation because it's always played and danced like at that night she literally makes a deal with the devil, and while she does get what she wants, she gets it in a vegetated state, so it's a very fucked
No,
up
no,
consequence.
it's not even what she wants because I think a couple episodes earlier, like when she can't get out of the bath, she straight up asks him if I end up like this, if I end up where my body is just if my body fails me, you gotta kill me.
Yeah,
And like he agrees to it. He says, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it." Like he says it for tears, but he says he'll do it. And then when that happens, he keeps her like a pet and just says, and like even when he can see her like crying through like for her being paralyzed, he's like, "Yeah, yeah, I know. It's what you wanted."
yeah, it's
It's it's it's like, oh, he's a bastard.
yeah, it's I always think of that that the like especially like when they dance earlier in the episode together, it's like, oh, that's kind of sweet. It's like Oz and his mother just dancing, but it's more or less just a reminder to that night where after he killed his brothers, like a few weeks later, they just went dancing. It's just a reminder for his mother that she could have killed him that night, but she
Yeah,
didn't. And
it's like in episode 2 at the funeral when when like when like I think that's on like on rewatch, but like he actually like recalls that to Sophia and like says it was like a celebration to my brothers and then like it's he sees it as like this really fond memory, probably why he keeps dressing his mom up in that
yeah,
sense, and why like he dresses Eve up as his mother at the end in that
mm,
sense. But like it's funny for him to like recall that as like a really fond memory. And like one of the last like great moments he had with his ma, and turns
yeah.
out she was plotting to murder him that night.
Yeah, and even Sophia was like, "What do you think got your mom out of like bed that night?" And he's like, "I don't know. I kind of think it was for me." And I mean, he wasn't wrong, but he's wrong
It,
for
it
the
it wasn't him as a person. It was more of a desire to have this shit murdered.
yeah. And speaking of the murders and everything, the gangster that his mother goes to, Rex, is kind of like a an idol to him in a way. Rex Calabrese.
Yeah, like,
That
yeah, like
and
he he puts him on like a pedestal in the first episode, and like in the monologue where like he says like that's the kind of gangster he wants to be, and like to the neighborhood, a parade from it, how he wants to be remembered. And then we see him, and like it kind of looks like he didn't really care much for Oz.
yeah.
Like Oz like it says like hey Rex, and like Oz is like yeah. It's like
Yeah,
it's like I do want to try and say Rex was like a good guy. But all gangsters, they've all probably got their dirty laundry and probably all like
yeah,
secretly a bastard. But like he did genuinely seem like he was a good guy. Like he wanted to help out
yeah,
Francis, and I'm not sure what connection they had. Like some have theorized that maybe Rex was actually the boy's father, but I don't think so. And I think the common theory is that she worked for him, like she
yeah,
helped with his books and that. It does seem like it does seem like he is the kind of person like if you were to have like the kingpin of Gotham, you would rather have him over Penguin. Like he's like just
yeah,
he's and then like and also like keeps like trying to hold into that idea of him like being this super great gangster that looks out for everyone. It's what the whole man of the people bollocks was like
yeah,
spouted from because he wants to be that. And then by the end, he's living in this sky high mansion. He's living in this sky high mansion above Crown Point, like not in like the city, like he's living above the people he's saying he's trying to look out for. So like he's still like kind of living like a king,
Yeah,
and like he lives in a fancy mansion with a lot of gold, and like it's like it's just and even just like the fancy suits, it's him trying to appease to high society.
yeah,
Like that's what he wants. He doesn't want to be like he wants to
man of the people.
think he's like Rex, but really he wants to just be like more
Yeah,
and more power. Like it's like the suits, it honestly looks great on him. And I really hope that's his look in
yeah,
part two. But like it's him trying to appease to high society because that's his idea of rich people. Because like he
yeah,
watched like 1920s films of them in like a top hat and like fancy waistcoats and big coats and that, and like that's his idea of wealth. So like,
yeah.
and like you look at like the Falcons where like that's actual wealth. Well, actual wealth, they're more bastards, but it's like what actual born into wealth looks like. Whereas this is like his idea of wealth is just like looking like a fancy twat.
He's more of a pretender than anything. Like he feels
Like
like yeah, one of those people who are just pretending that they are actually wealthy when in reality they're more just pretenders than anything. Like he mentions
like
I'll let you go.
what was it? I'll let you go. I was gonna mention how like he now drives a friggin' how he drives a friggin' Rolls Royce now.
Yeah, exactly. And like he mentions like Rex a lot throughout the show, like about how like he respects the people and all that, and he even talks about like when uh in the underground, like in the sewers, like he's like, oh, you're doing this for your people, you're doing this for your family, like every time you work for me, you're taking care of your home and you're taking care of your lifestyle, when in reality like what ends up happening is like everyone just gets killed, and he just tries doing the same thing to the local mob, where it's like, oh, they're that he in episode 7, or I think it's the end of episode 6, where he has this whole monologue about how there was a bridge named all those years ago, and he's like, oh, does it say your name? No, it says whoever rich schmuck put it there. And it really seems like he really believes it, that he's this that he's this person who's looking out for the people. And then you kind of just realize that he actually just doesn't care. He's just saying all this shit just to get the top. But it goes back to Oz lying, and I feel like he's not lying just to lie. I feel like he convinces himself that he actually believes the things he says, uh, which is what partly makes it so genuine. Like for example, like in the finale, Sophia's like, why don't you just tell her the truth? And I feel like he won't tell her the truth because he lies so much that he partly just believes the lie he's going with.
Yeah,
Uh,
like it's like it's like he's bought into his own bullshit lies because it's like easier than admitting the truth.
yeah, exactly. He had like in the entire show, I don't think he's once told the truth to like anyone, because he
Like he said the truth, but he just omitted certain parts. Like
yeah.
it's like even in little ways, like when he asks where Vic is, Vic says, "Oh, from Crown." Point," and then Oz says, "Like, oh yeah, I'm from B-side too, not Crown Point." But then turns out he was from Crown Point.
Yeah, exactly. Or how Oz is like, "Oh, I used to be a driver and I worked for this guy, and it turns out this guy got murdered, but at the end of the day, I was on top. I was on top, and I was working for Carmine from there on out." And then in the next episode, when Sophia comes around, she's like, "Oh, Oz used to be my driver too," and and then like Vic looks at her in like a bit of confusion, and she's like, "Oh, I'm guessing he didn't mention that part either." Yeah, that's yeah, and then she's like, "Yeah, that makes sense." But it's very clear that he likes to omit
Oh, yeah.
certain parts of the truth.
Oh yeah, because the whole story was that, like the person he was working for, it was I forget the name, but like he says like, oh, I work for him. I didn't know how to drive. Learned to drive. Said person was caught talking to the feds, and like it's possible he was telling the truth and that he did work for this guy, but like
I
it's
think,
possible that it's possible he was talking about Sophia.
yeah, I feel like he was talking about Sophia in that sense, 'cause, like talking to the feds, and then like didn't say that. I don't think
Then
he said they died, but I think he said that they.
I think he said like Carmine got him popped, which I
Yeah,
think implies like shot in the head. But like,
yeah,
it's thing is like neither of us are right. So like, it's possible he is lying, or it's possible he was telling the truth. It's like it's the fun part. It's like it's the definition of an unreliable narrator.
exactly. And it's so much to the point where he lies so much where you can't even tell when he is telling the truth, because it could just because it's wrapped under another lie, because he talks about this driver, and if it is about Sophia, then he's just lying, and you know he's actually talking about Sophia. But if it isn't, then it's very hard to tell. And I kind of like that, especially how like it's very clear that throughout the show he tries to like he tries to get Vic to stay with him a little bit through like a bit of like grooming, like he's like oh my he was my driver and
Yeah,
everything. And then like later on Vic is like, oh, like Vic talks to this cam girl, and she's like, oh, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm his driver. Like it's very clear that he wants to be like Oz. And
yeah, yeah. It's he finds this like the whole thing with Vic. Like we might as well talk about Vic now because
yeah.
we're on him now. But
Mm.
he's very much Oz's Robin. Like he's
Yeah.
very much like a perverted Robin. Like so much so that like for one, his name is Victor Aguilar, and I'm trying to say Aguilar like means bird in like
Yeah.
Spanish, I think. So
Yeah, it's very much a fucked up partnership. And
and like his backstory, like him stealing. Don't know. Jason Todd had two backstories in the comics. One was where he was just it was a carbon copy of Dick Grayson's, in that he was an acrobat who had his parents died and Batman adopted him. But then one of the many reboots happened.
yeah.
He stole the tires off the Batmobile, I think, and then
Yeah.
Batman like took him in. So like,
Yeah.
so like, and like Vic isn't a comic character. He's very much like a
Original.
show original. So like
Yeah.
they very much knew what they were doing in emulating that sort of that backstory for him and how it ends. Like
Yeah.
he's very much it's a very mental sort of relationship, and like
I-
it's meant to sort of be and because like I definitely think Pat's gonna end up with like it seems like the most logical thing for like part two and part three. Like I won't lose sleep if it doesn't happen, but it seems like a very logical step. And so like
Yeah.
planting this in there of like a spin-off show of what that could happen if it's the wrong person in the wrong time,
Yeah,
it very much
exactly.
feels like kind of set up. But
Especially the way Oz describes it, like when he's having dinner with Victor, and Victor tells him about his family and everything. And it's not that like and the way he describes it, it's not a way where he's speaking the truth. It's he's only describing it in a way where it's like, oh, if you try doing anything else, you're gonna fail in this world. You might as well just stick with me, because he's like, oh, the being like a mechanic or a cook, oh, that's the American dream. And it's like, oh, it's too bad. Like the world wasn't built for those kind of people. It's built for people like us. And it's a very subtle way of being like, if you go out and try and do anything else, you will fail without me. So you might as well just stick with me, Victor. It's it,
yeah,
it's very subtle manipulation that you don't really like. It feels genuine in like the first few episodes, but when you rewatch the show, it's like, oh, this is very subtle kind of manipulation that Oz is doing to Victor. And you can tell that Victor is kind of Victor the victim. Victor is kind of a victim in this situation. Um, where
Yeah, but also like
he's also a bad person.
he's,
Yeah,
he- he's also he's a victim, but also like
a bad.
Vic also did like in episode 3 when you see him in the flashback at the start, you can see like he wants more.
Yeah,
Like he wants more than a simple life. Like he says like his dad is content being a mechanic and like I do get that whole struggle of, like wanting more and and wanting more shouldn't be like a bad thing to ask, but like
yeah,
you can see why a life of crime is appealing to him.
yeah. Exactly. He even says in the flashback, like he's like, I can't. I feel like let me think what he was saying. Yeah, he's expressing his love for the city and why he doesn't want to leave it. Like it very much plays into later on after the flood happens, why he doesn't want to leave the city because it has this appeal to him that anything could happen, and it's so exciting to him. It's
Yeah.
it
Which we'll just also just say since like we're on that scene, Jesus Christ, the scene where they show the flood and they show the bombings, like good God, that
yeah.
scene was horrifying.
It's I think I would argue like the scene in the club where he experiences that again is just as horrifying because because all the bodies all these faceless people like getting see in the flood in that club scene is just absolutely terrifying. It's like I'm glad that the show is like, yeah, we're going to give you a different perspective of the flood because I don't think people realize just how big of a
Yeah,
thing
like
that was.
because in the Batman, like it's obviously portrayed as a really big disaster in the Batman. Like
Y-
it's the city being flooded. How else can it not be a bad thing? But
Yeah,
like it's very much it's from a top down perspective. Like it's very much
yeah,
like it's like you see the streets being flooded, but like you don't really see the damage all that much. We just see like it happening and then the aftermath, and it's mostly just like in areas where there's not that much people and it's just big city streets. Whereas here it's like in a dilapidated sort of area and like it washes away it washes away a highway and then
yeah,
like you see it slam into an apartment complex and like everyone in there is just told to be dead and
yeah,
like even just something as simple as like the wall breaching down and the water just spilling out into the street and like I saw like the behind the scenes VFX you can see bodies in the wave like you can see bodies just piling up and up and it's like I'm glad the show exists because it shows just how freaking horrifying that event would be.
yeah. And it's not like like it's not like one of those things like oh we knew the struggle of it. We kind of don't because like humans are like always like meant to like downplay stuff. Like we as humans we always downplay uh the
Yeah, it's like
the consequences of what actually happens. Um, like
yeah, it's like in the movie,
yeah,
like in the movie, you mainly just see it from the aftermath. Like you see the city flooded, but like you see
actually
like
see it
oh, it's not
happen.
all that bad. Like
Yeah,
it's mostly a bit it's mostly just areas like it's like half the city is
yeah,
flooded, but then like and it's mostly people being evacuated and like you think oh we don't see anyone really drown around. Just everyone got out and like you don't see the on the ground perspective. You mainly see it from Batman's perspective, which is the whole point of the
exactly.
film. Is that like his perspective is very privileged and like from like a very he literally lives in a tower, so like he's
Yeah,
literally living above the city. So you get what I mean. So like whereas here it's like it's always the point is like it's on the ground. It's on like the it's from the bottom, and so like seeing the flood from that perspective, it really puts into perspective just how like because like I was saying this like when like I was rewatching the film before I started the show, but like Riddler, like his whole thing was just lashing out at the city. Like it wasn't like he
yeah,
wanted to help the city; he just wanted to wipe it clean. And like, okay, like this doesn't have anything to do with the flood, but like I see like posts all the time being like Riddler's like, oh, eat the rich and all that, but like his
yeah,
whole thing was just is just the most random thing. Like the dirt he has on the Waynes, very rightfully so of a hush money thing, because like that's not good.
yeah,
But also like half of his dirt on the Waynes was that Martha had mental issues after her mother committed suicide.
Yeah.
And like this is seen as like a great big own, and like it's like you're an orphan. Surely you could empathize with that, but you know he's an incel, so no. But like half of his half of his dirt on the weeds is literally, ha, her mum done died,
Yeah, it's not one of those things where it's like,
and like it's just like he's an angry individual, which is why like he like him lashing out at the city causes this. It's like
yeah.
you think like oh he's poor, he's like one of the lower class, he's like some like a man, like the man of the people shit. Like it's why people rise up in his name because it's like they believe in his cause, but then like he blows up the city.
I think it really just goes to show like just how dangerous that man of the people thing can be. It's like a very Dune thing where it's like if you believe in the wrong cause, then or if you put a
It's like
person in that amount of power.
I was just thinking of this because of the recent election, there was like that one fan cam which was like the world when Trump gets reelected, and it was a bunch of film clips, and one of them
Ah,
was
yeah.
Dune. When the
Yeah.
entire point, like the thesis of Dune that Frank Herbert started was that like if you put so much faith into rulers who aren't deserving of that faith and they make bad decisions, it will fuck you over big time. It will ruin us all. Like that's the main point of Dune is that no one person should have that much of a following,
Yeah.
that much faith behind them.
No one should have that much kind of
Which
power,
is
yeah.
why, yeah, same here with like Oz and
Yeah.
even Riddler to an extent. They shouldn't have that much of a following where they can cause something like that.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what Batman realizes like at the end of the film, like he can't that he
Like like
kind of
like his mission of vengeance
yeah.
was like doing exactly that. It was radicalizing people. Like it was saying in order to make change, you have to be angry and punch down at the city, and rather than lift it up.
Yeah, exactly. And even though he comes to that realization at the end, you would still feel really guilty about everything that happened because
Yeah, like it's because it's why like a lot of people say like the third act was unnecessary, but like it was so necessary for Bruce's arc. Like even for just that one scene of that one Rid Lagoon, when asked who he is, he says, "I'm vengeance," and like it
yeah.
brings the whole full circle. And like the look on Bruce's face when he hears that, he's like, "Oh fuck, did I do this?"
Yeah, it's like when he's interrogating the Riddler, and the Riddler kind of treats Batman like partners, and he's like, "Oh, I'm nothing like
Yeah,
you."
it's like 'cause the whole thing was like he thinks he's his last target because like he's being dragged along and he thinks, oh, he's gonna kill me because like because you don't quite think about it. And then there's also like they play on like certain things like how uh when he bombs Wayne Tower, it's Bruce who sees the car that's intended for Batman, and then Riddler says, and on the car says, "See you in hell," and then Riddler says to Batman, "I told you I'd see you in hell." So like it
Yeah.
plays on that whole thing of like we wanted Batman and Bruce dead, but like then the twist is no, he actually idolizes Batman because I haven't read Riddler Year One, but I really want to. But I imagine they really go into it in that how like the Batman was his inspiration.
Yeah, I believe I believe I've heard certain things about Riddler Year One. I really need to give it a read, but yeah, I do believe it plays into certain elements like that. I believe it even goes into Bruce's early stages as well, but I'm not entirely sure because they describe Bruce as like this race car driver who's also like
Oh
a
yeah, I think that was in the prequel novel or prequel comic, I think.
yeah, yeah.
Which yeah, where like he like had like classic car collections and like well yeah the Batmobile is built from an old Dodge Charger.
Yeah, exactly. I
So like it's but yeah like what was that point again?
um oh I was just you were talking about how you wanted to see like in Riddler Year One like some that kind of for
Oh yeah, how like yeah. But also will say I am glad that the Penguin also like very much pointed that even Penguin thinks Riddler was a madman, like thinks he was a
yeah.
complete idiot.
Oh
Like
yeah.
there's so many people like on Twitter who were like Riddler was right or like all that shit, and it's like no, he wasn't. It's like
I mean, it just
he
kind of
was just an ang. It's just it's and it'll just be fun to play with in like future films where like Riddler probably comes back and like nobody likes him.
yeah. I think it proves the film right where there are actually people like that, IRL who believe in the Riddler's cause. Like it's not just like, oh, what kind of idiot would fall for that? No, there's like people out there who do
Yeah,
actually.
it's yeah, it's like it's weird how there's a Batman film that ends with like a political shooting and it's done by like an incel uprising and it doesn't feel silly. Like it actually feels like it feels topical, but it doesn't feel like okay, I'll just say if Marvel did this, it would feel so ridiculous. You know, they
Yeah.
overdo it. They make it over. Like She-Hulk kind of did it, but it felt a little over. Like it
Oh
felt a little
yeah, the
like
incel stuff.
they weren't sure how to. It's like in a world like this, how is this? It's like it's like you have like all these heroes, but She-Hulk is the one that causes all this shit.
It's
It's just
it's so
it's
interesting.
like it's like they wanted to play that card of like playing the toxic fan base card, but like they didn't really think about like how
Yeah.
to really make it work or how would it work in universe. Whereas here it's like no, it's like it's like very centered on like political activism and like I don't think the politics of the Batman are really quite complicated, especially in relation to its view on cops. Is all I'll say. Like
Yeah.
it's it's not so black and white. Like as we'll
Yeah.
say, like I think Jesse Gender made a good video on it, but like all I'll say is like I don't really that's not something I really want to confront or talk about. But like
Yeah.
it's a very politically charged film at least. Like and I don't think and I definitely don't think it's a right wing any like it's a very left leaning.
It's I feel like it's really weird for me seeing right wing people enjoy the Penguin, for example, where they're like, oh, finally something without the message. Where if you look close at it, there very much is a message, like with Sophia and everything. Like Sophia is put away by these old men, and when she starts challenging
Like
that power, they try to shut it down. It's
yeah, like it's a very feminist. It's surprisingly enough, The Penguin is a very feminist TV show.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, in the very first episode, the Penguin is respecting trans rights, which I mean, looking
Yeah,
back on it now, I don't know if that's like a move to like try and like get them to like him, or it's just you know he actually believes in
I
trans
think
rights.
it's a complicated thing. I think like at first it was like, hey, he's a bad guy, but he's not a monster. And then
Yeah,
7 episodes, and then seven episodes later.
yeah. It's I do think
No,
it's
I don't. But for instance, I don't think like he'd be transphobic or anything. I think it's like a case of like he views anyone as an opportunity, and
yeah.
it's just it.
I I think the Penguin
But
like
it's like, you go.
I feel like the Penguin realizes better than anyone. Like for example, like he's the like partially disabled and everything. Uh, like he realizes like kind of how important it is to respect those rights, but also it's more or less like he sees it as an opportunity more than anything. Like he's very
It's like yeah, like he is disabled. Like he has like he has a buggered leg and like has a limp. But like when they get on the train, he refuses to sit in the disabled spot. So like like his pride will like stops
yeah.
him from viewing himself as disabled.
And then it's not until like later he's seen like sitting in that disabled spot. Like he tries to like his hardest like to ignore like that kind of disability exists that he's because he gets insulted for it as well, and he doesn't like being insulted about his disability. because
his nickname is like a play on his disability because he's called the Penguin because he waddles about.
yeah, but you can see like how it actively affects him because like on that subway car he like refuses to sit on it for a second, and then later on it's shown that he's like sitting on it, like he actually is in a lot of pain and he
Yeah,
actually does
like
have to sit down.
yeah, like I think like actually Colin Farrell actually talked about that in like his process in like earlier in the day, like he'd not limp as much, but if it's seen
Yeah,
later in the day, he'd be like it'd be much more pronounced because he'd be on his feet all.
yeah, exactly. Like he's it's just some great acting from Colin Farrell, um, and
It's
I
it's like it's a complicated topic on like casting abled actors as disabled actors, but
yeah,
like you can at least tell that like well for one this is a character where like it's built up from the bottom. So it's sort of like it's because I doubt they could get someone who has that particular disability, like has that
yeah,
particular look in that. So like it's very much a character built from the ground up, literally, like just designed by a modelist. So like this one is an exception. Like it's not
yeah.
portraying like a common disability. Like they couldn't find someone who looks like this. Like there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, why didn't they just get a guy who looks like that?" And it's like I don't think they could. Not gonna lie, but here it's like you could tell they did their homework. Like you could tell, like from an acting perspective, they
Yeah,
knew what they were doing.
yeah, exactly. And I guess if we're going like going back to Victor now, focusing on him, I really appreciate just how like you don't realize until like a bit on a rewatch just how weighted that decision was for him, and I definitely feel like on my first watch I was definitely rooting for him to get out of there because um mainly because it's like, you know, it's a spin-off show, he's obviously going to die at the end or something is going to happen to
Yeah,
him.
frankly, we all knew he was gonna die.
Yeah,
Like everyone on Twitter was like, "Oh yeah, he's dead." Like
yeah,
it was
exactly.
only a matter of time before something happened to him. And like in the finale, I did think he was maybe gonna make it out because like when he was there with him and Oz and Francis in the hospital room, I felt like, he'd be dead by now, surely. So like, I
And then
guess
on the
he's fine.
bench.
And then 5 minutes later, he says the word family, and then it's like, oh, he's dead. He's gone.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's like, oh, you're like family to me, and then I was just is like, oh yeah, speaking of family, just kind of just kills him immediately.
It's
It's
just like, speaking of family,
yeah, I do like I do like just that decision in general, just how like heavy it is on a rewatch because you really do want to see him get out of there. However, I
yeah,
do
like
think
especially episode 3, like especially like when
yeah,
like he drives off, has the argument with Oz,
yeah,
and like you can see that it's a really it's an abusive relationship to be honest.
yeah,
Like like you want him to get out, like you're just screaming at him, get out, you idiot, just get out.
and
And then he just doesn't. He
yeah,
just doesn't. And like I'm not gonna say oh he had it coming, but like I think
yeah, no.
if he was still there after all that time, yeah, he had it. I don't want to say he had it coming, but like it was his own fault.
I feel like it's a lot more complicated than he had it coming
Yeah, like
because
it's I'm not saying oh it's his own fault, but
yeah, yeah,
it's it's mostly Oz, but it's just like Vic had every opportunity to get out of there, but he
yeah.
didn't. So
I
it's like it's like he's a victim, but also it's like you can't feel so sorry for him because like again every opportunity to leave, every opportunity, and he just didn't. He had a perfect way out
yeah.
in episode 3, and he just didn't.
I even think like like you can argue that like a lot of the reason why he stays is because of like Penguin's manipulation, like because his manipulation is very good, but also you can tell like he just wants to stay himself. Like even the beginning of episode 3 in the flashback, he's like, I love this city, anything can happen. It's unpredictable, and that's what makes it so exciting about it. Like those are the words he says, and like while I do think that Victor, like because of how he is. He feels quite small. Like it's very much like Oz at the beginning. He's like a little guy. And that's very much how I felt about Victor. Like Victor is just like this little guy, but you can kind of see him transform more and more into Oz, especially at the beginning of the series finale. I mean, well, we don't know if it's actually the series finale because there could be another season, but he starts making this speech, and it sounds quite distinctly similar to Oz's. He's like, "Oh, we're doing this for the people and everything, and look at my city. It's all destroyed." Like you can tell that he's starting to become more like Oz, for the worst. Like he even kills someone, and Victor. I mean, Oz even sees in his eyes, like he can tell that he murdered someone. And he's like, "Oh, well." Like he gives him some advice about it and everything, so you can see, like, as much as I don't think as much as I think it's more complicated than the fact that he had it coming. I do think that he was slowly transforming to Oz, and I don't think he particularly minded that he was, because you uh, you know I again, way more complicated than just like he had it coming, but at the same time, there were elements to it where you could argue, yeah, he kind of had it coming there, especially like how he wanted to be just like Oz. Um, but at the same time, there's a lot of manipulation that goes into it, from Oz's side, like especially.
Just it's more. It's like what the point of like the Batman and like what the point of part two is gonna be like the
Yeah,
Gotham is not as black and white. It's not that black and white. You can't just
exactly.
nail someone down to bad guy and good guy. It's like there's a lot of context and a lot of
Yeah,
stuff you have to think about.
because a part of me does know that Victor does want to leave. Just a small part of him that does, like, he does want to spend his life, but at the same time, part of it is due to his manipulation. Like, where Oz at the beginning of the episode and near the end of the episode is like, at the beginning he's like, "Oh, that's the American dream. Your father working as a mechanic and everything. Nothing wrong with that." And again, it's like that way of saying, "You're screwed without me." And then later on in the episode, he basically up outright says it. He's like, "Your father worked all his life and died in the slums for nothing." And he goes on and on about, "Oh, if you want to go back to that life of not being someone, then by all means. But if you stay here with me, you'll be someone. You'll have the opportunity to actually do that." And it's not that Oz even cares for him. Like later on, it's shown that he's quite sad at the bar and everything. And at first, you're like, "Oh, he actually does care for Victor." It's like, no, it's more of like a,
Yeah, I think it's like a mix of both. Like
yeah,
I think it's a bit like a old Jesse thing in that he does care for Vic in like a very small sense, and like he does
yeah,
like enjoy his presence kinda, and like does kind of like see himself as like a bit of a mentor, but at the same time he just wanted someone to like feel to push down, like 'cause he's always been because Oz was always the one that was pushed around,
yeah,
so he enjoys having someone to push around. Like, I mean, he's his driver, so it's like he's seeing like where he was at the start of his criminal career, and like
yeah,
he's able to be like, "Hey, look at you, you're pathetic, you're small," and that's like it's him
projecting.
becoming it's him becoming the people that he hated.
Yeah, he's very much projecting where he came from. But I do think that it's not a coincidence, like, by the time that everything ended with the Falcons and everything and the Maronis, that he does kill, um, that he kills Victor, because during that time, especially during the first episode, the whole thing is basically a loss of control. He's like spiraling and trying anything he can to grab onto some bit of control, which is why, like, he's kind of sad when Victor leaves, because he no longer has that feeling of control with him, that he does, like, when he's dealing with the Falcons and everything, because in reality he's quite powerless. Like, he's having to rely on the Maronis and the Falcons. He doesn't really have much
Yeah,
power, and it's
it's like that one line in the Batman where like Bruce pushes up against the glass wall in the iceberg.
yeah.
you know my reputation, and Batman says, yeah. Do you?
Yeah, exactly. I really like you know that that detail that's like of course he's like I'm sure an ounce of him is sad that Victor's gone because he cared for him, but again it's like in the finale like he's like he more liked having him around for the sense of feeling like he is in control of the situation when in reality he's very lucky to even be alive. Like if it weren't for Victor coming through to save him at the end of episode 3, he'd be dead. And I feel like the show even acknowledges that with without having those people around him, he would be absolutely dead. And it's only due to him, due to his silver tongue, that he's managed to survive. So I,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like it's just because the whole thing of the show is that uh, basically imagine like you know like in like in the latter halves of like the Breaking Bad seasons when like shit's just getting real bad, like especially in season 5.
yeah.
Imagine that, and that's just the whole show for this.
It gives me Breaking Bad season 4 vibes because like Walt doesn't really Walt is slowly losing Jesse because Gus is like kind of trying to manipulate him to his side, and it's definitely when Oz is at his lowest points. It gives Walter White vibes from season 4 where he's like trying anything to scrape for an ounce of control, and I
Yeah.
yeah. I I don't really know what else to say about Victor. It's it's more that he's very much like Sophia, where it's like they're both sympathetic characters, but they're both quite bad people at the end of the day. Um,
Yeah.
Although it's hard to call them both bad people when like the
Yeah, it's
Falcones exist.
it's like the whole point is that thing of the show is that there's always a bigger fish, but like no
Mm,
one's in this show, you know?
exactly. Like everyone, it's very clear that what the show is trying to go for. That everyone had a chance to leave when they did. For example, Victor had episode 3, but in reality, he could have left at any time. Like from episode 1, Oz is like, "Hey, make sure you leave your phone on at all times," and Victor could have just like left his phone off and left, but he decided to stay. Sophia could have taken a like could have just left and instead of trying to go out for vengeance. Again, it plays into that whole thing of like vengeance not really being a good thing. Like it costs you, and I don't really like revenge's bad stories because it. But
Last
here,
of Us.
yeah, exactly. But like I feel like here it's done very well to the point where she's kind of doing damage to herself later on, but also you can kind of understand why she's doing this. It's a bit of both, but how I do think that she does get some closure by the end of the series because she burns
I
down the
think that,
Falcone's house, uh,
yeah.
and like
And she finds out that she has like a proper blood relative in the
yeah,
form of Selena.
it's not completely uh down like everything's not completely downhill for Sophia.
It's like there's a light at the end of a tunnel for her, maybe.
Yeah,
Like, because like I'm not sure what's happening with this, but this might just, but like, you know how there was going to be like an Arkham TV series for this universe?
yeah,
I think it got shifted so it's in the new DCU, but also it's been like it's moved beyond that, so that there might be one for either universe.
yeah. I think
And like I've heard that like there'll be something to do with Arkham in this universe, like
yeah,
something, and like one of like I saw someone suggest that like after this series that they could do a Serious House on Serious Earth adaptation,
oh
and
yeah.
honestly, after the Sophia episode showing her life in Arkham, I 100% get it.
Yeah, I would absolutely be
It's
down for
it's
that.
like I know they can't call it Arkham Asylum because it's like it's not really an insane asylum anymore.
Yeah.
it's but like if any live action sort of Arkham was going to be called Arkham Asylum, it
Oh,
should be this.
it would be this because seeing it's not like it's not so much like a madhouse like it's portrayed in like all the other adaptations. However, it is very fucking it's very corrupt. Is all I'll say is that
Yeah, and, like even just something like that one person not having any chains, no one, and like the guards being like, it wasn't me, wasn't me.
yeah, and especially like how they release that prisoner for Sophia to try and stab, and when she refuses to stab the prisoner just stabs themselves, and she
No,
gets blamed.
because it's a madhouse and she probably has a lot of shit going on, so she probably like you're trusting someone who has a lot of mental issues with a knife.
Yeah,
What did you think was gonna happen?
yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where it's like, she that they're clearly trying to get her to kill that person, whether she kills them or not.
Yeah,
She's gonna get blamed
they
for it.
just they want it's like they wanted her to prove that she's the hangman. It's
Yeah.
like I imagine like Carmine bought off some of the staff and tried to like provoke her into doing
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah. That's definitely what ended up happening. Like because like
Because 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 well, while we're on it, like the hangman plot is actually like rewatching the Batman. It fits so well with
oh
the others. It's
yeah,
actually
it's
so well set.
amazing.
It's so well set up. Like
Yeah, especially
the
with
whole
like
thing, because
Annika.
yeah, because like even like when like he's choking Selena, he says, "You made me do this just like your mother." Like he straight up admits he
Yeah,
choked her mother.
yeah, exactly. Like I do find it kind of funny though that the actor who plays Carmine Falcone is like, oh, I can't play that kind of character who like strangles
Who
women.
who's who like he like John Turturro said like the show was very violent towards women, and it's like
I mean,
thing is I get it. Like if you don't want to play a character like that, and maybe it was like a one and done thing.
yeah,
Playing it some more would be a bit much for him. Like I get it, but at
yeah,
the same time in the movie, he was more physically violent to women than Carmine was in the show. In the show, it lied, like it was all off screen.
yeah, exactly. Like he killed all those women, especially the reporter off screen. So it's not like one of those things where he's physically having to do it. I think what
Like
happened.
like the closest we get is we see the direct aftermath of him killing his wife.
Yeah, I think what happened was he was offered to play Carmine Falcone for the Batman. He didn't realize that Carmine would be strangling people, so once his contract was over for the Batman, when he got offered it again, he was like, "Oh no, thank you." That's probably the best explanation I have for him. Like you know,
There's a couple. It might just be like they didn't have the budget for him. Like
yeah,
it's like he's a big actor. They probably couldn't get him, and like
yeah,
Mark Strong will do anything because I mean, come on, he's literally in the Dune TV show. Like he'll do anything.
yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. The Dune TV show that's out as well.
Um, I'm, I'm not gonna lie. As much as I love Dune,
It's probably not.
I'm not so interested. I'm not very interested in the show. Like thing
Yeah,
is, like with the Penguin, it does sort of like capture some of the highs of the Batman. But what I've been told about the Dune TV show is that if you go and expect it to be anywhere as good as the movie, it's gonna be very.
yeah. From what I've heard, it's sort of its own thing. Like it's not going to be
Mm.
tied into the third movie or anything. It's a very
It's
house.
set. And it's set. It's meant to be like how like some of the shit happens. Like you see, like one thing I've seen is that you see the Butlerian Jihad, like the war against the Thinkers, and it's
Yeah,
just you really shouldn't be seeing that.
yeah. It's like I
The whole, like the whole point, it's something you don't see because it's so far long ago.
yeah. It's like that thing in Doctor Who where they
Where you,
show
where you,
like the
where you,
time.
yeah, but it's like it's meant to be like so far beyond human comprehension that trying to imagine it in the physical material world makes it seem so less interesting and cool,
Yeah, like how they have the
and
book
make
for it in the
and
TARDIS.
yeah, at least with Doctor Who we had the excuse of like it was the final day, so they
Yeah,
had all the great big metaphysical weapons. They literally ran out of them. They were just going around shooting them like with pea shooters.
yeah,
But
exactly.
like turning the thinking machines into great big laser shooting multi-armed robots. It just ugh, no, no.
Yeah, I
It's
definitely.
just no. I'd rather not. No, I'm not. No thanks.
Yeah, I'd much rather. Uh, I think it's mainly just to capitalize off the popularity of Dune, just to be like, oh fuck it,
Yeah,
we gotta have something.
I think Denny even said he's not involved, which
Yeah,
is a
no.
big difference between this show, between that show and Penguin, because Matt Reeves is directly.
Yeah, exactly. Matt Reeves is like, yes, this entire, and you can tell that Matt Reeves is involved as well because everything is so well connected. It's so interwoven with everything, and
Like it's like his fingerprints are all. It's
oh
like
yeah, it's so clear.
It's Lauren LaFranc, I think she's called it. Like she's the
Hmm.
showrunner, so like it's her baby, but like you can tell like it has Matt Reeves's
Yeah,
fingerprints all over it.
it's very much like a Better Call Saul. It's like a it's Peter Gould's baby, but it's also you can tell that Vince Gilligan is all over it as well. Um,
Yeah,
in certain ways, it's very much the same as the two, but um, also like in
but
terms of
yeah,
the Hangman, it's very clear that she kind of plays into it when she's with the family, that she tries to get a reaction out of them because they're
yeah, like she tries to provoke them, make them uncomfortable, like
yeah
in the funeral episode when her cousin walks up and her cousin's daughter shows up
yeah
and she tries to push her daughter away and she's like no, and she like plays with her hair and like gets all real close and
yeah.
like she's trying to set this reputation of someone to be feared, like kind of.
Yeah, especially in the same episode, like when she starts like eating food and people like start staring at her, and she's like, oh, "I might as well go out." And so she grabs like a huge bunch of fucking,
Yeah,
I don't know, pasta and
and just shoves it in her mouth.
yeah, it's very much like she's trying to make a reputation for herself to be feared. I do like how subtle the family is at first about trying to get her to move to Italy so they don't have to deal with her shit. Like they at first they try to get I forgot the woman's name that Sophie used to be friends with. But she goes up to her and she's like, "Oh, you remember that time in Italy with all like the horny men and we used to get drunk a lot there."
Oh yeah, she says we should go there sometime and like that.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that. Yeah, then
yeah.
like by like episode 3, you have Johnny Vitti going, "Going to Italy? Oh, we're gonna say that that's where you went."
Yeah, and then like later at the end like of episode 2, Luca's like, you might want to get out of there. You know, it's like things are too stressful for you right now. Let us handle it. And then by episode 3, like Johnny V, it's like, we're gonna fucking kill you if you don't go to. We're gonna say that you've gone there if you don't go to Italy, and like
Yeah, it's
it's
like it's like thing is they're not as evil as Carmine, but they're more maliciously stupid.
yeah, exactly. Like, I do appreciate how confused Sophia is when all of a sudden, like, the girl starts talking about Italy and everything. She's like, "What does this have to do with any?" And then she slowly realizes, like, "Oh, okay, they're trying to get rid of me," which is why, like, the she starts playing with the girl's hair and everything to like try and scare her, which I really like, especially in the fourth episode, Shintanti. I can't say it well. I'm not Italian. I should be able to say it, but when she has that speech about like, oh, I know that none of you want me here, but like it's basically her revenge speech, where she's like, fuck all of you. I'm I'm going to basically this is your last night that where you feast and uh be fat and happy and everything.
Yeah, it.
I'm going to. You may not
I tell you
realize
what
it,
it
but you're
reminded
dead.
me of. You know what that speech reminded me of?
Yeah.
You know that speech in Batman Year One, where Batman like enters the
Yes.
fancy party and it says, "From this
Yeah.
moment on, none of you are safe."
Yeah,
It very much felt like that.
that's the vibes
Like
I
I
got
know they
from it as
couldn't
well.
get that into part one. This felt like their way of like
Yeah,
paying a slight reference to it in like this show.
it's even very similar, ladies, gentlemen, you've eaten well, you've eaten Gotham, etc. Like Gotham's like the people and everything.
You've eaten Gotham's wealth, her
Yeah,
people, and all that stuff. So, like,
yeah. It's very similar where she is like, oh, you've basically wasted my life, and you all everything that you do is like,
and none of them spoke up when Carmine sent her away. And hell, they sent in letters saying how crazy she.
Yeah, I do like how Johnny VT tries interrupting the speech, and then Sophia just stares at her like, yes, and then he like slowly realizes, oh shit, I probably shouldn't say anything because she's got blackmail on me. Like he starts to speak up for a second, and then he realizes that Sophia's got dirt on him. I feel like that's like a really nice detail. Uh,
Yeah, especially since Luca is right in the room.
Yeah, exactly. And she could just mention it at any second. So he's like, Sophia, that's actually never mind. Carry on. it's it's one of those things, especially because you can tell how much he doesn't really care about her. Like he's very openly disrespectful to her, and even Luke is like, "Hey, can you like shut the fuck up? You're speaking to like my like my blood relative
My
here."
niece,
Yeah,
because Johnny is her mother's cousin. And that's like so far removed. Whereas like Luca is like was her father's brother, and like he's like Luca's not good, but he's not as bad as Carmine.
yeah, he's very much a bad person, but you can tell kind like he he doesn't like he I wouldn't say he wants the best for Sophia, but I would say that like he does care for her in some way. Because he like if he didn't like care for her at all, he would have just like killed her like the second she started causing trouble for everyone. I so I do think that he does care for her in a really fucked up way, but uh, I do think that the main thing of Sophia getting revenge at the end of episode 4 is very satisfying. It definitely makes me think if they do make a season 2 for the show, I feel like the only way to end it is by Sophia killing Oz to make it come full come full circle where she's like killed basically everyone who could have gotten her out of prison but didn't, and now the only one left is the one who actually put her there in the first place. It just feels like a full circle naturalistic kind of thing,
Uh, if we don't get a season two, and like maybe they could do like a season two in between part two and part three. I feel like
I
that'd be
feel
like
like
a kind of
yeah,
smart thing, but
that does
depends on how part two ends, you know. But like,
yeah,
but if we don't get a series two, I think like if we only get three films, like if we don't get anything else,
yeah,
I think if Sophie is carried over to the films, they'll probably have her kill Oz in part.
yeah. And I do think that they'll definitely add her into the films at some point because like they've said they're going to add more spin-off shows. Like this isn't the only one that they're doing. They're probably going to
And
have
like there was that rumor of like Barry Keoghan's Joker getting
yeah,
a spin-off series, which James Gunn shot down, but like
yeah,
and it was like like the rumor was he'd get a spin-off show and then he'd be a big part of part three. And
yeah.
like even though it was shot down, I feel like that would be a very smart move.
I
Like because
do
like because like well, if, ideally it would have him be a major part of the Arkham TV series. Do it.
yeah,
Like not have him be not a show of his own because like what could he do? Like it's just a TV show of the Joker going around and
the Joker
but just
baby.
but just in the films, I feel he should be like a side character, like someone you see
Yeah,
for like a scene or two at most,
it's like,
and then I definitely think in part three he's gonna be a.
oh yeah,
Don't cast Barry Keoghan. You don't cast Barry Keoghan as the Joker and not do something with him.
I do think like they definitely are going to make a spin-off show of him. I think at some point. It's just not now because the only scene
Yeah, like,
we've got of him is the scene at the end and a deleted scene that
yeah, like, and like it, it would yeah it would all depend on how part two ends. Like there's plenty of rumors like we theorize that like it'll end with the core owls being revealed, but I think that's gonna be mainly be safe for part three. Like I don't think they'll end on a cliffhanger. Like especially with how long it fucking takes to make these movies.
I do think that they're going to because for people who don't know, I'm pretty sure you don't know either, but with the Long Halloween comics, they made a spin-off comic called Catwoman When Rome. So I think,
Yeah, like for
yeah,
that's where I love. That's where her story of being related to Carmine Falcone. So like
yes. So
that.
I
So
think,
and there was like, you think there'll be a Catwoman spin-off, and I think they've
yes,
down, but I think it'll happen at some point.
I
This version of Catwoman is just so cool, and I think like she deserves like her own
I do think
little side story.
I do think it'll happen because of the letter she gets at the end of being like, "Oh hey, I think you're my sister." So I do think there'll be a Catwoman When in Rome esque kind of spin-off because that's when she finds out she's related to the Falcons and everything. I feel like that would be pretty cool.
Well, she already knows she's related in the Batman, so it's like she wouldn't find
Yeah.
out in the TV show. Like
Yeah.
it'd just be like, cause like cause like it's been like two weeks since like the end of the film because like
Yeah.
I'm not sure when the TV ends because like episode three and part of four take place on the 19th of November. Like I think at
Yeah.
most it's like late November, so, like almost a
Yeah.
month since the end of the film, which hopefully means Christmas time part two. Like I
Yeah.
like just gimme, gimme, like just a snowy aesthetic Christmas Batman film. Like just not like set on Christmas, like on on like Batman Returns and
Yeah.
uh Arkham Origins. Just give me like how the first film had like Halloween deck
Yeah, exactly.
set during Christmas and have have Christmas decorations. Like
I
I just need it. Like even if Mr. Freeze isn't the villain, like,
yeah.
I am like I'm at the point. I'm at the point like when I thought multiple Doctors was gonna be in the 60th anniversary Doctor Who. Like when it was announced, we all thought, yeah, like Matt Smith, Capaldi, and all that are gonna be in it. Then like as we got, I don't think that I don't think they're turning up. I'm
I
like I'm at that point with Mr. Freeze where it's like I don't think it's happening, but
you, you know, I will say that I have a little bit of a theory because they're making the thing of Bruce doesn't really want to be Batman, and I think they're going to play into it. Like if Mister Freeze does show up, and if Batman does encounter him, it's going to be sort of a self-reflective moment for him, where it's going to make him question even further if what he's doing is correct because both Mister Freeze and Batman are both obsessed in a certain way. Like Mister Freeze is doing something because he wants to save his like dead wife, his dying wife, not dead wife, and I feel like if Batman sees that in the sequel, it will definitely make him question a lot more. So I'm not saying that like it's certain that Mister Freeze is in the sequel, but I mean it's winter. He's starting to
yeah, like
question whether he's Batman or not. Uh,
and
perfect
yeah, and
villain.
like the thing is with like pretty much every Batman film, like they the reflection of Batman.
Yes, exactly. Like
The first film very much emphasized that with him literally inspiring Riddler. So I think like
yeah, I
Case for almost everyone.
I do think so.
Well, only thing I'm worried about is that, because like some of them, it's like obvious that they're gonna do it. Like it's obvious that we're gonna get Harvey Dent,
Yeah,
and it's obvious that we're gonna do Joker. But also they're pointing towards Court of Owls, and it's just,
yeah,
uh, it's just who's gonna be the villain of the second? Like,
I think
the most common one for a lot of people is gonna be Hush. It seems to be pretty obvious. Like
yeah,
it's just. It's just there's so many more interesting villains you can do, and just
yeah.
uh, it's like I wish they would go beyond free. Like I wish they'd go for like five,
I, I
just like go for as many as they want.
I do think they're going to go for more than one villain for the second sequel because they're doing. I believe it's going to be a trilogy only, and there's so many things that they can do with it that I feel like they're going to do more than one villain for the upcoming films. I feel like it's going to be Mr. Freeze, and maybe another one, and maybe a Court of Owls reveal at the end of the second one. Because in
Yeah,
the yeah, in the Penguin
'cause
show. Oh, sorry, I'll let you go.
yeah, 'cause in the Independent show, like in like the court, they show like a bunch of owls, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and on the curtains and everything. So it's definitely they're definitely heading that way. It's just it probably won't be until the third film where something gets revealed to Bruce that will change him for the better. But it'll be a
Yeah,
revelation.
it's just well, for one, like I want them to do Harvey Dent, but I don't want him to be introduced and become Two-Face in the same movie.
Yeah, no, I feel like he'll be introduced in the second film and he'll be prominent in the third because it's all about. I feel like the third film's all going to be about justice and, you know, a law, which is why I think the Court of Owls are going to be there. Harvey Dent's probably going to
Oh
be
yeah,
there.
shit, that makes sense. But also, like, actually, that makes sense to throw Joker in.
Yeah, because it's all about
Yeah.
the chaos
Ooh.
and all.
So, like, having and then it would. It's the issue. Why did the Dark Knight have to
Yeah,
be good and do a perfect inferior villain team up, and then like every time they do that, every time they do a movie with them villains, it's going to be compared to the Dark.
yeah. I don't think that. I feel like it's going to be unfair because like the Batman's already getting compared to the Dark Knight. That's just like how I think that's just how good the Batman is that it's just going to get compared to the Dark Knight. And I feel like the second film's going to be just as good or even better to the point where again it's going to get compared to the Dark Knight even though like it basically has nothing to do with it. But the third
Yeah,
film, yeah.
it's just, especially if it has the Joker in it. Just
Yeah.
it, you're gonna be inviting comparisons, and especially
Yeah.
like comparisons to Heath Ledger's Joker, because like it's. I'm gonna say it's because he died. It's because he died. Everyone's
Yeah.
props it up as like this legendary performance that could never be topped, all because like it was his last,
Uh,
like entered legendary status. So now every future Joker has to be compared to it, and
yeah.
it's just
It's
in general, it's just unfair. And like this trilogy is definitely going to be compared to the Dark Knight trilogy, and already I think it's going to be better because for
oh
one,
yeah.
there's only like for one, the Dark Knight trilogy has the Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah. And Batman Begins. I like Batman Begins. I'm one of those people who think the Batman Begins.
Batman Begins. Batman Begins is my favorite. Like,
I yeah, same. Yeah.
it's it kind of has that sort of winter vibes out there.
Yeah. I will say though.
This is a very weird phrase. It feels weirdly British. Like
Yeah.
it's the most British of the three, especially because like they shot Wayne back the British countryside, and
Yeah.
like for one, like one of the Doctor actors show up. Joe Martin shows up at some point, and like it's it's just it's the most British of the three, and like even though like Gotham is still shot in Chicago, it feels like it was shot in the UK, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, especially like
Like
the
how
crime and all that and
like 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 how in the Batman Gotham is a little bit of Chicago, but mostly Liverpool and Glasgow.
Yeah, it has gothic vibes to it, like in the Batman. Like there's a lot of gothic-esque settings, especially when Batman drives around near like the graveyards and everything, like on his motorbike,
Yeah.
all that. Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot of
We'll
those.
say. I do also like that they continue that in the Penguin because like they mainly shot it to like give it
Yeah,
that sort of gangster vibe, but it still feels kind of gothic because like
yeah,
for instance in Crown Point, the building the Penguin moves into has like a very sort of old arc has like a very old architecture type feel.
yeah, exactly. I I also will say that like especially for the Falcone's mansion, it feels very I want to say Dracula esque, but it feels
I wouldn't say that. It just looks like an Italian villa.
yeah, yeah, that's the better comparison. Like I do like if going back to Sophia, because we kind of went off point about getting excited about the Batman sequels, which to be fair, I don't blame either of us. It's very exciting to guess where it's going to end up. Um, but going back to Sophia, I do think that uh her art there's something about her arc that makes things so satisfying despite where she ends up like at the end of the show. Uh, because I do think at the end she does get mostly what she wants. She does get revenge on the Falcons, and she even changes her name to Gigante, where she respects her mother and everything. Like it's very respectful of her where her mother came from, and she changes things. But you can tell that she doesn't really want to be a gangster. She kind of like she's kind of only being a gangster for the sake of getting revenge on Oz because uh,
Yeah.
she's like planning on giving everything away, and I do think she would have given everything away. I just don't think she would have given away the mansion because that's her main source of trauma. Uh,
And, like that was always going to be burned down.
yeah,
That was always going to.
es-
But
es-
it's like she's basically just a nepo baby.
mm,
Like the only reason she's in this position is because her father was Carmine Falcone. Like
yeah,
it's just that's the only reason she's in this position. It's like it's why it's sometimes it's easier to root for Oz because like he's much more self-made.
it's the underdog
He talked about this.
situation.
It's like he talked about this in the finale how like how easy she had it because she grew up rich. She was born into it, and like
Yeah,
he and every other like build their way up, and it's like I know he's like a piece of shit, but it's like he's got a point.
yeah, and I do think she does realize that like she has that sort of like power and influence that she is like a nepo baby because she wants to give like that power away, and despite her burning down the mansion, I do feel like it is a very prominent source of trauma that she would want to burn down, especially with the imagery of like the three cigarettes and where she burns them. Like she burns the one cigarette is where she found the mother's dead body. The other cigarette is in Carmine's office, which is where she gets sent away, which is like the final time she sees her father, and the third one is the dining room with the portrait and everything. Like it's all very specific places that she's burning down, um, that are deep rooted in trauma for her. So I do think that you know she's not like, oh fuck it, I'm not gonna give this to like the crime family. I do think she's going to, if she would have stayed alive. Well, I mean, if Zhao would have stayed alive, I definitely think she would have given it to him. It's and like Oz says, oh, like you have no idea how much of a struggle it is for the little guy. And while he's definitely right about the point of like having power, like because she never had to struggle for it. I don't think Oz is right about the fact that she has no idea about, because she was always nicer to the people in lower points of power. Like she was always nice to Oz. Like she insisted on people not calling him the Penguin, especially her brother, which is someone like she loves dearly. Like, she knows how much people had to struggle for it. I just think it was an oversight on her part that, that could have happened. Um, so I think they're both right in that situation, that car ride. One is more or less coping with what happened, like how he's thinking that he's the one being mistreated here. However, he does have a point about the nepotism and everything, where Sophia does have a point about him being a part, like the little people, like for the little people act, like that's all an act, and the whole thing about her supposedly not caring.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I'm not saying he's right per se, because like it is all bullshit for him. But like
Yeah,
he, he
he does
has like
have
a
a
point
point.
against her, and like
Yeah.
that like she was born into all this, and the only reason she's even in all this is because she just can.
Yeah, I do, like it. It's one of those things where it's like he's right, but he's also playing off of it more. Like he's trying to make her seem like a worse person.
It's
Like
like
he,
I don't know how to put this. It's like he's right, but he's not correct, or like he's correct, but he's not.
yeah, like he'll say this thing about the nepotism, which is true, but then he'll go off on this thing about how he thinks she's real arrogant about all of it, which is definitely not true because she does not want to be a part of this life at all, really. Like, it's very clear that if it wasn't for Oz and the Alberto thing, she probably would have just she probably would have just stayed in the game to make sure Alberto is okay, just to look out for him. Like, I don't think she actually cares about the mob game herself. I I do think she
Yeah,
just wants to move away from that life because that's what she was groomed to be all her life from her father, to be like the next Carmine. Because even in the fourth episode, Carmine's like you're not as soft as he is, and I don't think that's particularly true from Carmine because it's very clear that she does care about people. She's just very authoritative as well. She's just more direct, where she
yeah,
cares about people, but she's very direct in what she wants. Unlike it's very much a like a how do I say this? They're both like out of the two. I don't think Carmine is right in thinking any of them are right to be the next ruler. It's kind of like a succession thing where like Logan doesn't think anyone's in his family is right to be the successor. It's kind of like the same thing in the Batman. Like he like Carmine doesn't really have much of a choice because obviously he doesn't want to give it away to the other people. He clearly wants to just give it away to his children, so they can lead the Falcone bloodline and all that. But it's very clear that like, the person who is most right for it just doesn't want it at the end of the day, because she's a lot more
yeah.
soft
Also,
about
John Snow.
it.
Yeah,
um.
I don't want it. I don't want it.
Oh. Yeah. 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 Like I do.
Yeah,
I do think Alberto, for example, it's very clear Alberto, like Oz, just it's the point you made the other day about how Alberto felt like he was going to be the main character in the show, and Oz just tumbled in and just like became the main character of his own show on accident. It feels like.
it's like because I know that Alberto because of I've heard about the comics and how like he's a big main player in the Falcon.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like he's gonna be a main character. Like he's the heir to Carmine's legacy and the new Kingpin, and like he's got this whole thing going on. Rewatch, it's like he was a main character, and like within like the first few minutes, he gets shot, and suddenly Penguin just tumbles into the main character role.
Yeah, it just feels like he wasn't supposed to be there to begin with. Like, it just feels like everything was completely on accident, even though he acts like it was all planned out.
Yeah, like I think Matt Reeves mentioned that how I've started listening to the official episode podcasts,
Yeah,
and in the first one he says that like thinks he has everything planned out. He's planned his way to the
yeah.
and then he fucks up by arrogantly shooting Alberto. Then the rest of the show is him dealing with that fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's his one biggest weakness, his ego, his pride, that he can't handle getting like insulted. Like even in episode 2 when Luke is like you've done enough, which could be like seen as a way like just a non-casual way of being like no thanks, I don't need any help at the moment. But Oz sees it as like the worst thing possible, and he goes on this rant to Victor about it. He's like, "Oh, you think I've done enough? I'm just getting started and everything." It's so clear, like the smallest bit of criticism towards Oz is just portray like he thinks of it as the worst kind of offense, and even though even though like the worst, like even if you barely insult him, it's not even really that big of a deal, but to him, he makes it such a big deal. I feel like if it wasn't for that weakness alone, he'd be so good in what he does. But I feel like that's definitely going to be his downfall later on, and it's either going to end up with him in Arkham, because of Batman knocking his teeth in, or it's going to end up with him dead because of Sophia.
Well, thing is like this because the whole thing is that really ends up in Arkham because he's kind of crazy that and same with Joker like they're all have shit going on but and like the thing of all is you think the he's just a gangster criminal he's like one of the villains for Batman but
Yeah,
by the end like you realize no he's also got his shit going on so it's like
yeah.
where does he fall in is he there with like Carmine and all that lot like the mob lot or is he one of the supervillain lot who are like need to be in Arkham like
Yeah.
where does he fit in like does he go to Blackgate or does he go to Arkham.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's not entirely clear. Like, at first you're like, oh, well, he's not as bad as, like, the Riddler or the Joker, for example. But then as the show progresses, you're like, I mean, he,
He's not. Yeah, I don't know if it's not as bad as like
yeah,
per se, but
no.
like he's a whole different beast, is what I'd say.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. Again, the whole devil perspective, he's more of a beast than you know, than a madman, because there's a big difference between someone who's insane and someone who's just beast like, uh because he do- Oz doesn't do things without a reason, and the reason why he killed his brothers is so he could, like, get more attention from his mother, even though in the finale, us like his mother says there was enough of me to go around for all of you, like you didn't have to do that. And it's just it's such a fucked up thing as well, because I like how Sophia is like, oh, okay, we'll just stop when like Oz at least confesses that he murdered his brothers, but he doesn't, and she gets all panicked. She's like, Oz, just say the truth. Like she gets really panicked about it. Like did she didn't expect that to happen, because you would have thought like he would have told the truth to stop his mother from getting hurt, but that's not even the case. And I just kind of like that bit of acting from Sophia's actress, just that state of panic, being like, oh, I didn't actually expect the
Like
mother to
like
get hurt.
just it just makes that thing that one gif for us. Like even she was weirded the fuck out.
Yeah, yeah, she like it's one of those things where she's like, I didn't expect much from you, but wow. Like,
Our expectations were low, but holy fuck.
yeah, exactly. She's just like, holy fuck, I didn't even realize you were capable of being this degenerative, of being this completely sociopathic. And that's probably like one of my favorite scenes in the show. The fact of that scene of Sophia just completely panicking about Oz when she finds out that Oz is even worse than she initially thought, uh, and she just immediately panics about it. Cause I mean, I don't doubt that Oz, like, he obviously cares for his mother, but I feel like his goals, his goals are beyond your understanding. His goals are a lot more
Hmm.
complex. Like, he cares about his, like, that opportunity, that ambition to be the number one way more than his mother. Which would, because he also like plants the idea when they're dancing in episode 7, being like, oh, I'm gonna give you the penthouse suite and everything, I'm gonna do this and this for you, like, even though his mother didn't really ask for a lot of it. She only asked that he would be successful, because she wants to know that she'd be fine in the future. She did not ask for, like, the, like, a lot of what Oz was aiming for. Um, However, like, again, it leads back into that thing of these people could have backed out at any time. Like, Pink Oz's mother could have, you know, tried to, instead of grooming him, to be this, like, this awful person, she could have, you know, uh, tried to help him, tried to make him understand that these things are not okay. However, she more or less just exacerbated it into him being this lying, conniving little shit who just goes around thinking he's owed whatever he wants. Uh, it's very
Yeah.
interesting to me where it's he acts like a spoiled brat when in reality he is neither he's not spoiled at all. It's so interesting to me. Uh, the character of
Mm.
Oz is just such an interesting character that, again, like, we have, like, I feel like we haven't even gone beneath, like, we've only reached the tip of the iceberg of what he's actually
Yeah, yeah,
capable of.
like if you want like a proper analysis, like there's gonna be plenty of videos going
Yeah,
into it. This is just us going through it for like what our initial thoughts on the series are, but like
yeah,
yeah, like the fact like Oz, like the Penguin is like probably one of the most complex like DC live action characters is just amazing.
yeah. Because again, I thought he was a very underutilized character, and I always thought he was meant for bigger things. Uh, Ironically, that's what Sophia said, but, like, I
Yeah.
always thought he could be a great villain if given the opportunity, because it's kind of like that thing, like, in the Arkham games, where it's like, I do like Cockney Penguin. I just wish he was used a bit more than just, that one guy Batman beats up
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
information.
Like,
Where,
yeah, like 'cause in, he poses a bit of a threat in Arkham City
yeah,
because
like with
like
Solomon
he like
Grundy.
he's whole he has like the museum as like his base and like has all the cops in there and
Yeah,
that whole that's really long overdrawn bit where you're trying to take him out
yeah,
and even when he's like it's he's both serious and also a complete joke. Like
yeah.
there's no real in between. It's just
I
especially with Nolan North especially with Nolan North having up the accent.
Yeah, I definitely think the best example of Oswald, being like that slimy but also kind of, not being able to take him really seriously, is the best example I can use that most people would know about is the Telltale Batman games, where he,
Oh.
yeah, a very not talked about series, even though I
Yeah,
really like it.
I know about that one because I've seen playthroughs of it, but like it's the whole thing is that like he's this slimy sort of
Yeah,
person that climbs his way to the top of Wayne Enterprises, and
Yeah,
the reason he's called the Penguin because he has like a penguin mask.
yeah, exactly. That's probably the best one I can example I can use that people would know about because
Yeah, like that's actually the version I thought they were gonna base Colin Farrell's Penguin on,
yeah,
like because like he's a penguin. He's relatively good looking. He's young.
yeah,
He's
exactly.
Bruce's age. They were good mates. Like he's British. Like he has the Cockney accent, and
Yeah,
like he's
exactly.
and like he even and like you can imagine Colin Farrell playing that sort of penguin. And like actually
Exactly.
on the podcast, Matt Reeves said that was the initial inspiration.
Oh, really? That actually
Yeah,
makes
Like
a lot
he,
of
like he
sense.
said, he said there was a video game that was like that very much fit the description of thinking of Telltale, and it
Yeah.
was like he's this good looking guy, has like a bit of a nose, and even looks a bit like Colin Farrell, and then eventually but like I figured, yes, I knew it, I knew they were gonna put something like that.
Yeah, but especially like since their goals are quite similar, their Oswald's family used to be in some sort of power, and even though it's not mentioned in the show, it definitely is like it's kind of said that Oswald's family might have been initially like working for a gang family because of all the connections and
Yeah,
everything.
like
Uh,
like I do sort of imagine that that's why like he's like why his mother was so close with like
yeah,
in other adaptations, like especially recent, like in Arkham and that one, the Cobblepot's like old Gotham money, like with the
yeah,
Waynes and that, like they were very much like old money, which is why like it's it's why I'm fine with I'm changing my name, Cobblepot, because Cobblepot sounds like a rich British name, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. Whereas Oswald Cobb sounds like a
Like,
no,
like I know that like in Gotham they changed it to like he's like a German family, so like it's not
yeah,
Cobblepot, it's like Cobbleput. So like it was just him like translating it to English, but like I hearing it in context like Oz, it
yeah,
works, and like they
exactly,
they
yeah.
make it they sort of like make it work, and I I don't know how to put it, but like it this penguin is so believable as like its own thing, but still the penguin that like you can kind of like buy it as like a little Elseworlds type version, you know?
It gives Batman Earth One vibes for me. Where like even I think Matt Reeves even said that Earth One, Batman, yeah, Batman Earth One, where he got the inspiration for the Riddler because he, in Batman Earth One, the Riddler does this riddle thing where he sends Batman a riddle and he starts going off after the higher ups of Gotham. It's very similar to how he is uh in the Batman, except he doesn't like flood the city or anything. That's a you know
Yeah, that's more No Man's Land, which they do actually reference. Like Crown
yeah,
Point is, they say the Crown Point is a No Man's Land. So, like they know what
yeah.
they're doing.
It definitely does feel like there's going to be a No Man's Land esque uh subplot in the movie where Batman. I do want to see this. I want to see Batman being a good you know what I mean by good person, like he's like helping like people,
Yeah,
uh like a
well, like
symbol of
he's
hope.
helping people. Like, for instance, like if like a house starts collapsing, he'll be in to
Yeah,
help people get out, and then like as Bruce Wayne, he'll help fund rebuild, like that sort of
exactly.
thing.
Yeah,
Actually,
actually trying to
like being a
help.
symbol of hope,
I
like
think
being a symbol of hope, of both like philan phil philanthropically, like using his money for good
philanthropist.
and like using his money for good and using Batman for good.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the realization he's going to come to at the end of part 2 is that he can be both. He can be both Bruce Wayne and Batman, and that's where the whole billionaire playboy thing is going to start, where he's going to start being you know pretending to be a rich kid but also helping people as well, while also being this symbol of hope for Gotham. as Batman. Like he's going to be both. I feel like he's going to realize like yes, I have partly like indirectly made these villains, but at the same time I feel like there's a lot I can do here, and I feel like I can actually help the people of Gotham, help them have hope that there is a better future. Because I feel like with without Batman in Gotham is such a clear shithole that I feel like Batman is exactly what Gotham needs. Like I don't want to be like one of those people like, oh, I'll be fine without him. No, I actually do feel like Batman is a needed symbol of hope uh for Gotham, and I feel like Bruce is gonna realize that without hope, it's just going to spiral back into its old
Yeah.
ways.
Like eventually he'll realize without Batman, it'll just regress back to how it was before.
Yeah, I do think he's not going to be as violent or brutal in the next movie. I feel like I will say this. I feel like Batman's image has been tarnished a little bit over the years as this really mean and grumpy guy who just beats the shit out of people and breaks their legs and shit, even though if it's for crimes that they didn't do. I as much as I love the Arkham games, I feel like part of
Oh,
that.
yeah, they definitely contribute to that with how much you just beat the pulp out of everyone.
Yeah, like it's definitely an inspiration from those games, but I feel like after part one, he's definitely going to be a lot less brutal. His fighting style is definitely going to change. Like he's only going to be violent if he needs to be, but I definitely think he's going to help try and reform criminals in a way that's like he's going to offer them help first, but if he's going to be violent towards them, then he's obviously going to defend himself. But not in a way that's like going to be smacking their head against a concrete wall.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, just like just breaking their spine, breaking every bone, and then
yeah,
going, now talk.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I feel like in the next movie, like he might maybe I don't know, at worst break their leg. Like I feel like Batman's going to realize that violence is not always going to be the answer for these things, especially in the state that Gotham's at, where people can't afford healthcare or whatever the fuck. He's going to be not as violent, but he's going to find different ways to try and take them down that doesn't leave them paralyzed for fucking life. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, I feel like that's the most interesting thing when discussing about both of these shows, like whether it be the Penguin or the Batman. I feel like theorizing what the next thing's going to be about, or what the next spin-off show might be about, like what I was saying about Catwoman and everything. Because I feel like maybe the next Catwoman spin-off show, if it is ever gonna come, might be about her learning about Sophia, because to me it seems like Sophia was kind of like a Voldemort situation where like she shall not be named ever in the family while she was in Arkham. It gives off the vibes to me that once she was in Arkham, they kind of just disowned her in a way. So I feel like the way she sends a letter to Sophia at the end is by finding out that she actually does have a sister, and because at the at the beginning, like she at the end of the thing, she doesn't even know like who she's related to. She feels like it's only um the Falcons. So I feel like she's going to be going on a journey of sorts because she does leave town and everything. So I do think it's going to be a journey for
Uh,
finding herself or something.
I'm not sure what it actually be. I don't think it'd just be about her finding out about Sophia. I
Oh
think it's
yeah,
just a
no,
case
no.
of she might have just seen on the news that all the Falcons died in Bagasley, and that
Yeah.
Sophia was the only one surviving, and so like, and then eventually she would have seen the news that Sophia was again for for that crime, and then she wrote the letter and all that. So it's a case of you can't really make a TV show based on like a couple of days of like looking at the news.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Although
exactly.
the like there has to be a plot, like her like going on a couple of heists and that, like
Yeah,
something, like maybe like how the Penguin was like him getting to the top, wearing the fancy suits and
yeah.
getting the top hat and the umbrella, like that sort of thing. Maybe like Catwoman would be a case of she'd get the cat suit, like get the cat ears, like more so of the Catwoman persona, like
I
she'd be more
I mean, it's
like
very clear that she's going to be Catwoman because like the hood she's wearing is kind of like cat ear like and all that. Like, you know,
I mean, it's not really cat ear, like it's more like she's wearing like a balaclava and the little folds kind of resemble
yeah,
but not quite. Like it's it's like when like I don't know. It's a few things. It's like what River says about the Doctor in Force of the Dead, where like it's like seeing someone before you know them. It's like they're not fully colored in. Like they're not fully
yeah.
done yet.
I do feel like if they were gonna make a show about her, they would make it about how she's going to find herself a bit more, find her place in the world. I don't think the next like I feel like if she was going to return, it wouldn't be as like mainly this heist type of gal. Like I feel like it would be more of those kind of like Eve does in The Penguin. She kind of wants to help her girls out. I feel like Catwoman's more gonna it's kind of gonna feel like a year one thing where she's gonna be helping out her the
Yeah,
local
yeah,
sex
true,
workers
true.
by like robbing stuff and then kind of a Robin Hood situation where she like steals from the rich, gives the poor type of thing. Uh, and I feel like in Batman media, I'm kind of like it's kind of hit or miss uh, about Catwoman because sometimes I feel like Batman should be really stopping her. However, uh, if they're going in the direction I think they're going in, I feel I would kind of like to see Batman accidentally encounter her, and then he sees what she's doing and kind of just lets her off, uh, like it obviously would probably give her like a warning, but would just let her off at the end of the day because he kind of just agrees what she's doing, because like obviously even in the first movie, Bruce is kind of this left-leaning emo where like he just hates most of the rich people. He doesn't really go out much as Bruce Wayne. Like it, I feel like in the next film because of that whole exploration of not wanting to be Batman or anything. I feel like by the end of it, he's gonna you know have a more positive outlook on Dorm. I don't know. It's it's kind of hard to say about like
Yeah.
that whole discussion. I feel like if we were talking if we're gonna talk like final thoughts on the Penguin, like there's a couple of things like a couple other things I'd like to mention like
Yeah, like uh one thing I'll mention, I'll let you go, but just in case like we wrap up, the actors they got for young Francis and young Oz were really perfect. Like
yes,
that's just something I really want to mention. Like they were
spitting
pitch
image.
fucking perfect.
Yeah, they look like the spitting image of what a young Oz and
You know,
Francis
like
would look like.
like especially the actress that they got for young Francis. Like
Oh yeah.
she looks like a dead ringer
Oh yeah,
for
absolutely.
Deidre Oak. And
I
like not to mention, really gotta thank like the dialect coach because not only did they look quite like they nailed the accent.
I feel like everyone nailed that kind of accent to the point where I was kind of mimicking how Oz speaks, like all the girls in there, oh Johnny V and all that
Well,
stuff. Like,
yeah. The thing that's gotten me is that I watched like an interview where like Colin Farrell gefilte fish, like if he needs to like get the accent, he say gefilte fish, gefilte fish. Like
oh yeah,
it's become like a bit of a stim for me. Just like I'm doing something and I randomly just go gefilte fish. Like
just to get into
it's
character.
fun. It's a fun way to say it, but like yeah, like for instance, like when the guy playing young Oz is talking, like hey man, like the thing that comes to mind is that it reminds me of like the first time we see Oz in the Batman. He says, "How you doing? I'm Oz." Like
Yeah.
he's, he says it in a very similar way to that, and like that is so specific, and like the fact that they managed to just honestly, they should be really fucking proud how they managed to like just get the best casting to like represent younger versions of characters. Like not only wrote them perfectly, like chose the best actor and like got like a brilliant dialect coach to to capture like really specific accents and like really specific ways that certain actors are talking.
Yeah,
Like that's
exactly.
really impressive and like it honestly makes like the flashback scene so fun to watch. Like well for one, like the Jersey sort of accent is listen to. It's like it's like the American version of Scottish.
Yeah,
Like it's just fun. It's just fun to listen to, but also like it's just impressive how they managed to capture the mannerism of like
exactly.
the aged characters. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was something I wanted to mention.
Yeah, I do think what's the word for I definitely like how he was in the Batman. You can definitely see him trying to manipulate Batman a little bit, where to the point where it just doesn't end up really working. Um, like he's like,
Yeah,
"Girl, I didn't kill no girl, and I ain't one thing's for sure, I ain't no fucking rat." Which,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. Like
obvious.
it's like it's like in the first film, like it's like even in the Penguin, he says, "I ate no rat," and
Even though,
it's like because in the film you believe him because it's like you think like oh like he probably isn't that bad because like you take him at his word and like you find out oh it was Carmine not him
yeah,
and then you watch the TV show it's like no you are talking out of your fucking ass.
I do find it like quite fun that the only reason we underestimated Penguin is because he's just a funny little guy in Batman, where he's like, oh, God, what are you showing me? Come on, just doing all that kind of shit.
Yeah like like even in his first scene like he seems like I know how to put it not like an ally but like some like a middleman
Yeah,
between between the Mock and Batman like he's like going along with like helping out with Batman's investigation into Anna.
yeah,
Even says it. Let me know if there's anything I can do.
yeah.
It's
Even
like,
though like it's like
it's like he'd be more reasonable if it was just that. But then like then the rest of the film has to happen. Mm.
yeah, exactly. I definitely feel like I'm not gonna say anything, but I definitely feel like he was partly responsible for Annika's death, especially
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
like
Definitely.
he's like, "Girl, I didn't kill no girl, and I'm not no fucking rat." Like in the show, like it's very clear, like he was helping Carmine, like with especially with the Hangman stuff.
Like
Um,
he was definitely helping to cover it up, and like
yeah,
the only reason he starts denying it is because Sophia is out.
yeah, exactly. Like he probably would have taken credit for the murders. Like if Sophia was still locked away and he had no one else to like, no one else up against him, like he would have just started taking credit for it. At least in my mind, just to make him look more intimidating. But
Yeah, but
yeah,
I get the feeling like, for instance, Kenzie was there in the room, like Annika was strangled. So I imagine maybe Oz was in, well, not in the room, but like knew about it. He definitely
yeah.
knew.
Oh yeah, he knew for sure. That's what like that's a
Like
fact right there. But we don't know if he was actually
it's like
involved like properly.
it's like he's complicit, but he didn't do it, and that's
Yeah.
how he justifies it to himself.
Yeah, like he's like, oh, I didn't kill no girl. I mean, which is half true.
It's technically true, but
It's just
like she she'd be more likely to be alive if you weren't involved.
yeah, it's like he's still involved. It's just he didn't full on hands on strangle the girl. He just wasn't he just more or less sent her to her demise, you know.
I mean, like for all we know, he probably found her.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially since Annika's body was there.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
was there when they went to pick up the drop, so he definitely knew.
Yeah, exactly. About like Annika's death and everything. It's unclear how involved he actually was. I mean, obviously he's involved. Like
Yeah, it's like like that scene's right before like he says, "I didn't kill no girl."
yeah.
He just doesn't acknowledge that there was a body bag with a woman in it in one of his cars.
He's I love I don't
And
know if
like
he actually
he said he says, "You think you can come after my money?" And like said dead girl is around his money.
Yeah, I don't know if he's actually disgusted by the way of what uh like Gordon is showing him in the picture, or if he's just playing it up like he's more innocent than he actually is. He's like, "Oh my god, what are you
Uh, uh,
showing me? Yeah, come on."
I definitely think it's the former. Like he's
Yeah.
no the latter. Well, like, he's playing it up to be like, "Hey, I'm just a little,
I
stop showing me that."
I do think he does kind of feel disgusted by it because like in episode 1 at the end, Victor's like, oh, I didn't know whether to chop off the rest of the head or go for the spine, and he's like, all right, like he's just like kind of like, oh, that's kind of fucking disgusting, can you stop talking about it. It's kind of like that where
Yeah,
he's a bit disgusted by it, but like not really.
probably both like disgusting, like just like hamming it up to be like, "Hey, showing me that."
Yeah, like trying not to seem like more of a sociopath than he actually is. Like I
Yeah.
I do think he like a little bit of him. Like same with Victor. He cares for Victor a tiny bit. It's the same amount for how he is with bodies. Like he is a little bit disgusted by like what he was seeing, but he is definitely playing it up, which I think just makes it even more funny in the Batman. Like it makes that whole reaction video just so funny where he's like, "Holy God, what are you showing me?" It's just oh, it's beautiful. I love how that's still like a meme to this day where people will just use that video. I don't know if
Yeah,
people still use it because of
yeah.
you know,
People still use it, but
yeah, it's definitely
and honestly, I do hope that like he is still like just as funny in part two and like
he definitely will
is
be.
and I hope like he takes on more of like he's like, more of like a bastard role like he does in the TV show, but it's still
Yeah.
like but it's still the funniest character.
Yeah, exactly. Like now that we know his true colors, but we're still like he's kind of funny though. Like
It's like it's like sorry to get political, but it's the same reason for why like people like somewhat tolerate Trump. It's like
yeah,
he's an awful human being,
but he's kind
but
of
he can
funny.
be, he can be a bit funny.
Like it's like seeing him in a McDonald's like working for a day, and it's like okay, that's kind of
Okay, when he want, if he was just a reality TV show, something like that, what he was before this,
yeah,
he'd be a lot more tolerable because he'd just be stupid and funny, not like end the world stupid.
yeah, exactly. It's oh boy, yeah, he's certainly something. That's all I'll say. I mean, uh,
Yeah, that's all we'll say because
yeah,
yeah, when
I mean,
we're still in the fallout and not reacting well.
yeah, I mean, it's not exact like a don't really need to apologize for getting too political because I mean, I'm pretty sure it's pretty clear at this point that we're pretty left leaning on this
Oh,
podcast.
yeah, we're very left leaning.
I mean,
I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I'm a liberal, but just I'm just pro not being a cunt
yeah,
is what I'll say.
I mean,
That'll probably get us demonetized, but whatever.
yeah, I mean, like, who cares? I mean, like, I mean, if it's not clear enough, we have a trans host on, as like, trans co-host. So I mean, if that's not obvious enough for what our political, you know, uh,
Yeah, it's like we speak for ourselves. My existence speaks for myself.
exactly, and you know, I that if it hasn't been clear from us, like, kind of making fun of like the right a little bit. I mean, I don't know what is at this point. I But I guess the final thing I want to talk about is like Sophia's quote unquote death scene where she gets like the gun against her head, and it makes it, and you really think she's gonna die in that moment because like I mean how else would she get out of that situation? And and the way it's like a shot and framed, I just it's so good. It,
And even like her staring out across the bay and like the camera starts going real blur and you think suddenly it's gonna be a bang and then suddenly it's a spotlight instead.
Yeah, I really like that. The way they play into it because at first the spotlight you might think is like I thought it was her in the afterlife type of thing. The whole spotlight at first until it was played up to be a helicopter with the sounds and everything.
What did you think she was gonna rise to the heavens like Mr. Bean?
No, I thought it was gonna be some weird metaphorical sense of the afterlife or something. But the way you describe it makes it sound way more funnier where she was just gonna get fucking picked up like Mr. Bean, like a UFO would pick someone up. And like the fucking uh and people will start like opera singing like in the Mr. Bean intro. That's actually kind of funny, but
Wait. It's no, it's not people. It's just Riddler going.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely would have like the fact that I thought it would have been some metaphorical sense of the afterlife just proves that they could probably stretch it as like they could have just gone there and I would have completely accepted it. Um, but they did it. But it just shows that like the writing for this show is so good that even if it is really grounded, if they went a little bit fantastical with it, uh, I wouldn't have minded. like
Yeah.
and I feel like that again playing into like why Mister Freeze would work. I mean, I feel like it. I feel like even in a sense Clayface might work. Um,
Yeah,
just
like
like done in a different way, like
if
not like a you know uh
not like the big monster, but like
yeah from the animated series or anything like that.
if it's like the original Clayface where it's just a guy in a mask,
Yeah,
don't do that shit. Like it's just, then it's just like why bother with the character if you're just gonna just go like a version was like that. It's no, it's like his
yeah,
name's Clayface. You make him a clay monster.
yeah. You
But
like
like if it's like if it's a case of like I don't know what you do for like Android stories where like he's so buried by the clay and how it's shifted himself that there's nothing left of the original guy and like there's something you can tell there, but it's like
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't
I
know if
just
he'd
prefer
fit
if
that
like
well.
if 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 if, if you're gonna do Clayface, I want it to be a big monster.
Yeah,
Like
I
I know that's what I know that's what the DCU is doing. Like they just said Alan Tudyk's gonna be the DCU Clayface, but like I just I just like if you're gonna do Clayface, you gotta do Clayface. Don't just
yeah.
it's like if you're gonna go fantastical, go fantastical.
It's
Just
very much like that thing.
you know,
If you're gonna do Mister Freeze, you're gonna have to do the cold heart, like the heart of ice type thing, where and what they did in the animated series, where they made the story of him doing it for his wife and everything. Like because that originally was in the comics. That's like an original story that just became really popular because of how influential the animated series is. Um, but yeah, it's one of those things where if you're gonna do it, you're gonna have to do it like that. Otherwise, otherwise it just simply won't
like
work.
it's been grounded through that because like something that like when the show was coming out, when like the promo was starting, and like the whole Oscob thing happened, everyone was saying, "Oh, they're sacrificing everything for the sake of it being grounded," and then the show came out and turns out no, it's just a case of how can we take the comic booky stuff
Yeah,
and ground it in a way that that it works with this world. So like there was a retweet where it's like it's not like it's not taking away the comic book stuff. It's just saying how can we make it work for what we're doing, like, that sort of
exactly.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's not
Like you could just like you could very easily take Mr. Freeze and put him into this world, but
I mean,
I think like like Batman Fantastical is different to like rest of DC Fantastical. It's
Yeah.
like I still don't want this to be the DCU Batman. Like I don't want Superman show.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, it wouldn't fit at all. I feel like it's in the same sense of like if you're gonna get Poison Ivy in here or something, like you might as well just make her a master, like a seductress type of like. I can believe that they could write in like a drug that makes you like kind of mind control slash makes you in love with
Yeah,
someone.
y- like you can ground her in a sense. Like you can
Yeah,
ground her easily.
I don't think they'll put her in the Batman sequels though, because
Yeah,
I
like
feel like
yeah, yeah, I don't think she will. Like her and Harley, like I don't bring them in for this. You know, it's like
yeah.
it, it is just a case of like whatever villains Reeves wants to play with. You know.
Yeah, exactly. I do think uh again, Mr. Freeze very much on the table. I feel like they're definitely heading there, especially with the winter aesthetic. You don't put the winter aesthetic without being on accident. Matt Reeves knows what he's doing. He's definitely like, ooh,
Especially if this is like the most unrealistic thing about this show is that it proper snows in the 2020s.
oh yeah, yeah, no, that'd never happen.
Like it does like proper fluffy white snow, and it does that in November in 2022, and that shit does not happen. So
Yeah,
like,
no.
I think they're probably going for it, is what I'll say. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I, and if I don't, I'm not gonna say missed up.
Oh yeah, no,
The
no.
least I want is just a winter aesthetic Batman film, and we're probably getting it. So it's like,
I love
yeah,
winter aesthetics in just anything. In God of War, when they did it, from for some of the parts, I was just like, "Oh, that's great." I just love myself a winter aesthetic. So
yeah,
if they don't have Mister
the
Freeze,
opening
I don't care.
the opening chapter of Red Dead 2 is
Yeah,
all I'll say. Like the most underrated chapter because like
beautiful
it's
chapter.
so because it's so claustrophobic, and, like
Yeah,
kind of cozy, but also like freezing at the same time. I love it, and
yeah,
everyone everyone who says the opening chapter of Red Dead Redemption 2 is like too slow and like puts you off the game and will not survive the winter.
yeah. I think Red Dead Two. I haven't finished it yet. I'm currently on chapter 3 because there's like 5 chapters
Oh,
in, isn't there?
there's six,
6, yeah.
seven technically.
Yeah, so I'm like pretty much halfway through the game, and I've been finding it amazing, but I feel like I had no idea that people actually didn't really like the winter chapter until I started looking online and seeing people.
Yeah, it's often seen as like the butt of the game, like that and chapter five. But chapter five is a bit more justifiable, to be honest, in my opinion. But
Yeah,
we'll
exactly.
find out when you get to that. But chapter one is like, it's such a vibe. Like I love it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I will say I will say this. It's like you said earlier. If Mr. Freeze is in it, I don't really care. I do think it's gonna happen though. I'm placing my bets. I feel everything I said earlier. That's what I'm betting. I'm betting my imaginary currency on that happening. And
Yeah. Thing is, I'd like for it to be Mr. Freeze, but chances are it'll probably be like Push. Like I
I
feel like he's going for much more grounded villains.
I feel like it's going to be both. I feel like it's gonna be like a Mr. Freeze Hush situation where he's gonna have to
Yeah,
deal with both.
true,
Uh,
true. Like because I keep mentioning Harvey Dent, but he can just be a side character.
yeah, I
Like
feel
he
like
can just be like,
he's not gonna be prominent until Batman Part 3. He'll be in Batman Part 2, but I don't think he'll be very prominent until Part 3. That's my theory.
yeah, like literally all I want for him is like just to be a villain in part three. Like that's all I want. But like part two could work if it was Hush and Mister Freeze.
Yeah,
Because for one,
exactly.
if you have Hush and like and they do the whole he wears Tom Bruce Wayne's face, that would be a reason to have Pattinson in more, like you, as Bruce Wayne, and also as I don't know if you'd have him as Hush or you just get like an actor who's like similar enough to Pattinson. like someone who like
Yeah.
is someone close to his age and like that his generation and that like for Andrew Garfield's
Yeah.
Matt and Charlie Cox, like the sort of British actor who all lived in the same bloody house in the same time. That the story.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I feel like I feel like if you're gonna do I might say that they probably won't do the whole Bruce Wayne face thing. I feel like they're just going to do there's this bandaged guy going around Gotham and he's connected to Bruce in a way. They're going to do kind of a similar thing with what they did to in the first part where it's like the Riddler's sort of connected to Bruce Wayne, except even more so because like, Thomas Elliot, childhood friends with Bruce
Yeah,
Wayne.
like I mean, and plus like it'd be like Bruce would come more of a shell because of Harvey Dent, and then because of uh, thing is like you couldn't do the whole Tommy Elliot is friends with Bruce Wayne because his dad was murdered by Carmine Falcone because Bruce's dad.
I feel like what they're gonna do is they're gonna show Bruce Wayne coming out of his shell a bit more, going into that playboy philanthropy side, and he's gonna be friends with Harvey Dent. He's gonna be friends with Thomas Elliot because Thomas Elliot is probably gonna be this renowned surgeon. So obviously Bruce is gonna be like, "Oh, hey, you're doing great" and all that, and they're probably gonna play up the Tommy Elliot persona where he's probably gonna be some fucked up guy. Like he's gonna be this really seemingly nice person at first, but secretly he's like this fucked up person. Probably like I don't know, plays with his victims, plays with his the people who come
You
to
know,
him looking for surgery and all that.
yeah, like uh, that's where the detective stuff will come in, and like I
Yeah,
know what. Then
it,
like I nah, maybe some freeze tech is involved or something. That's when Mr. Freeze comes. But
yeah,
just yeah.
something. I Yeah, that's my theory. If Hush is gonna be involved, it'll be in part two. If Mrs. Freeze is gonna be involved, it'll be in part two as well. I'm
And our predictions for part three, me personally, is the going off my instinct, it'll be Court of Owls, Two Face, and Joker.
Yeah, yeah, same here. It like they're gonna set up Harvey Dent in the second film, and then they're gonna have the whole acid attack or whatever will happen to him. Probably by the end of maybe at the start of part three. Uh, and yeah, they'll just do it like that. That's my prediction. I feel like that's gonna. I'm almost certain that's going to be what part three is about. I'm so certain.
Yeah.
Maybe Riddler might make a return, but probably like only
Yeah,
for like a few minutes.
like one theory I've heard is that there'll be an Arkham breakout, and that's how Joker escapes, and probably how like other characters that are there will show up. Like you'll see Riddler break out.
Yeah, and oh yeah, Sophia probably will break out as well, which is maybe how we'll get Penguin death thing. And I'm very much putting out all my bets on Penguin's death, um, because they're not afraid to kill off Carmine, in this movie, and they're definitely not afraid to kill off. They killed off Magpie, which is a. I mean, she's not really a big villain or anything. She's quite a very small villain in the Batman comics, but I was quite surprised to see her in the show. Just like Sophia, I was surprised to see her, but I mean, long Halloween type stuff, it makes more sense now. But
Right.
but yeah, I think
But yeah,
that's
that's our predictions for part two and three, and we've gone through our thoughts on Penguins. So yeah,
yeah, I think
I think this is a good time to wrap it up.
yeah. Yeah, I guess I'll do the outro. I'm I'm not used to doing the outro. I'm more used to doing intros, but I'll still give my attempt. I'll give it a crack, an outro. So thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed it, watch our other you know our other episodes. For Halloween we covered Bly Manor, and I know that a lot of people haven't seen Bly Manor, so if you're curious, if you're looking for an underrated project, looking for something to watch, definitely recommend Bly Manor. I haven't watched Dune Prophecy yet, but I'll probably get around to it. Um, but yeah, tune in for next time where we'll be covering Arcane Season 2 with maybe a special guest, maybe not. Depends if they're available or not. It's like a last episode how we were gonna get Sky in, but we ended up not doing that because she wasn't feeling that well. So yeah,
Yeah.
tune in for next time. We'll be covering Arcane Season 2. Probably will be in a couple weeks because we'll both need to rewatch Season 2 and all that. So yeah, thank you all once again for tuning in, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.